Welcome to the Comics Aficionados, everybody. I'm your host, Wes, and today we're going to talk about some Powers of 10, number 6, the finale to the groundbreaking Jonathan Hickman X-Men reboot, and I got a fantastic panel for you today. First up, Lance, what's going on, buddy?
Not much. Glad to be here, Wes.
Uh-oh. Lance can't hear me. We already got issues.
Uh-oh. Didn't you hear me?
No, I can hear Lance.
Yeah, I can hear Lance.
Okay.
What's going on, Lance?
Glad to be here.
Awesome. All right. Next up, Paley, what's up, buddy?
Oh, man. It's Saturday morning, and I'm half asleep. But, yeah, I'm drinking my coffee. Everything's great. Let's do this.
You ready to talk about some comics?
Oh, yeah.
All right. Next, Doc, what's going on, buddy?
Just fighting with OS X updates and forgetting to eat my Count Chocula for breakfast.
How can you forget your Count Chocula? If you don't let the milk soak into the marshmallows enough, they squeak.
I know, right?
I don't like it. It always bothered me as a kid. But we're not here to talk about Count Chocula and marshmallow cereals. We're here to talk about Powers of 10, number 6. Doc, you were one of the biggest skeptics of the series. You seem to warm up. What did you think about the finale of Powers of 10?
I like it and I hate it at the same time. I really do, because, like, you know, I watched Zach's video on this, and he kind of his title kind of summed it up for me. Like, okay, cool, that was a great Elseworld story, but I want my X-Men back. And now I'm hoping that we'll get some of that, but, like, you know, Xavier basically abandoning his dream at the end. You know, sorry guys, spoilers. Yeah, too bad. You know, Xavier basically abandoning his dream for what's ostensibly Magneto's is, I still don't like it.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
At the end of the day, like, I don't like that. And I was hoping that there was going to be some sort of twist or whatever, where there's, you know, we come back and find out that there's, you know, something else going on with him. But there really wasn't. It was just he got convinced because he saw how everything ends. That, yeah.
X-Men seemed to have something of a doomed trajectory, though, of every storyline. Like, he does have a good point, I think.
No. I understand that, but sometimes, you know, the whole point of X-Men was kind of, it was a little bit idealistic, even, you know, where they still triumph even over insurmountable odds.
Sure.
You know, and when they just change their approach, because Magneto's approach was always the easier. You know, same with Apocalypse's. They were always the easier approach. They were always the more likely to be the, you know, effective solution. But Xavier's was the better, because it was the better dream. It was, you know, the route to get there was harder, but it was more noble. And
the problem there is that some people, you know, what's that saying? Some people you just can't reach. You know, especially when you're dealing with military types and whatnot, who are, you know, particularly world leaders that are portrayed as they're portrayed in the comic there. You know, I don't think they would have ever accepted Mutantkind.
It wouldn't have been in this generation, but it would have been generations later.
Perhaps, but you'd have, you know, bad teaching bad all the way up.
Yes, but the slow cultural change over the course of generations is kind of, you know, it's kind of how we've eliminated racism, how we've eliminated homophobia, you know, just slow generational shifts. You know, we've gotten away from, you know, it wasn't that long ago, you know, that we were segregating military. It wasn't that long ago that we had, that we were, people could be thrown out of the military for being gay. Now nobody gives a shit. Now they don't like it, but they don't give a shit.
But how many cultures have been wiped away in that process during that time before we came to that conclusion? I mean,
well, and it's also
there's a lot
happening
of
in the Marvel universe, and in that universe, every time that they go on this trajectory, the mutants lose and they get wiped out, and eventually assimilation happens after man and the machines evolve to like such a degree that the only evolution left is for them to assimilate to a higher state of being, correct?
Well, yeah. But I guess my point was, there's a difference between coming up with a doomsday plan and proactively engaging in a doomsday plan.
Well, I mean, it still isn't like, they're openly planning, the annihilation of humankind. They're essentially carving out their own United States, basically. And in that particular way, I guess it can be seen.
Yes, for now. But
all right, so
anyway,
Stax just chimed in. I want to say welcome to the channel, Stax. This is your second time on Comics Aficionados, and you've been a huge supporter of House of X, Powers of 10. It's been you've been one of the best commentators on YouTube. So thank you very much for joining us, and let's get back to the discussion. Sorry for interrupting, Pele. I just wanted to point that Stax is here.
Oh no! I was done with that. It's just I think it's more as their own strike out for independence rather than pray for just integration. And I just given the storyline and given the track record of humans in their in their world in that timeline, I think that independence was going to be the only way that would work, and it would have to be a hard independence, so
it's still a really depressing issue, like a conclusion, because you find out, Charles learns the ultimate fate of mutants time and time again is basically annihilation, and he basically breaks, and he's crazy now, and he's taking mutants on a different kind of path. What did you think about that, Stax? Did you think it was a depressing ending?
It was, and I think like what you were saying, watching them break Professor Xavier is disheartening. It really is, because it's always been that we can coexist and there can be a better world with mutants and humans, and they are completely leaving that behind. And it's why Professor X is breaking it, and it's why the more and more this happens, it's just Moira is looking like the big baddie. This is the same person that stood beside Apocalypse, that tried to, that ran with Magneto, that did all those things in those 7th, 8th, and 9th life. So I don't think she has any intention to let humankind continue. Why would she?
Well, here's the thing. During that time, I mean, yeah, it's bad. It's really, really, really bad. But to see the atrocities that she's seen over and over and over again, I think would break just about anyone.
Oh, absolutely.
Well, yeah, and she also went on an enormous murdering spree.
Oh, yeah.
She lived for 1,000 years to see that there was no chance for mutants to survive. Then she joined up with Magneto, and that failed. Then she joined up with Apocalypse, and I think she had to live another 1,000 years, right?
100.
Yeah.
Oh, it was 100 years on that one. So right. You've been through a lot. I could see why she's a little bit crazy, but I got to agree with Stax on this one. Moira feels like the ultimate big bad in this one. She's manipulating Charles. She intentionally broke him to a degree. It sounds like she doesn't want to fully break him. But Lance, you read the issue. What did you think about the conclusion?
Having not been the X-Men historian of some of the other panelists here, it actually kind of fell flat with me to some extent, because I thought we already reached this conclusion in previous issues. Like, did they already sit on the bench and do this? So I was kind of like, okay, I get it. They're starting to explain why they're doing what they're doing, but I kind of I kind of forgot, I guess, that the Xavier dream was to be more idealistic and more moral, because it has been a while since I've read X-Men, or since Xavier's been alive even. So I thought that it was interesting. I'm always kind of looking a little bit more suspense and action than what I got in the final issue, but they did make some interesting kind of plot details that are going to clearly spin off. But I do wonder about how they're going to have a major arm of their governing run by Hellfire Club, and how that's not going to create massive problems. So, like, if Sebastian Shaw is gonna be the black hat of their group, basically. Who's their enforcer if they don't have Sabretooth?
Wolverine.
Kitty Pryde.
What's that?
Kitty Pryde.
Kitty Pryde.
Oh, that's terrifying. Yeah,
She's the Red King.
Oh,
I think that Wolverine will end up doing a lot of the dirty work.
Well, he's on X-Force, and the Marauders are going to be the arm of the Hellfire Corporation.
Yeah. By the way, I feel like the Marauders and the X-Force are reversed in their functions.
That's a good point.
Because if anybody was going to be the island's security chief, it should have been Bishop. Literally, his job was Xavier School enforcers in the future.
Well, I guess it's Black Tom Cassidy, correct?
It is.
Mm-hmm.
But I guess my point is, you already had a guy that was literally like the head of, like, the chief of Xavier's security, and you're not going to use him as the chief of security. That seems really dumb. But sorry, that was just a
it's a really good point. I think that I can think of about 8 mutants that I'd rather have than Black Tom Cassidy as security. So,
well, I can understand,
but he's tying in on the organic level with Krakoa, right? That's why it's effective.
Yeah, that's the part that makes sense. Having Black Tom at least high up involved. I guess my point is Wolverine would be better for the wet work, and Bishop would be much better for security.
Well, yeah. Well, it looks like X-Force kind of is security. Did you guys see the little teaser thing? Well, yeah, Bishop's on the other team.
Bishop's on Marauders,
on the ship,
and Wolverine is on the security team. That's my point.
But I think they're actually going to go out too. I think that's just that one teaser is. But I am pretty interested on how humans or another mutant have snuck onto Krakoa without them knowing about it. Apparently, there's like a little loophole or like a weak point where you can exploit and get onto the island. That could be interesting.
Well, I think we're getting a little off topic at this point.
Absolutely.
Sorry, I went on a tangent.
Could I? Justin in the chat here makes an interesting point, and this I think goes into Xavier's motivations. I also don't like the idea of slow generational change. Should the mutants just allow their children to die until the humans grant children aren't as bigoted? And it's like, how many times do the X-Men have to save the world before they're accepted? Like, that's kind of a good point. Like,
I get it, though, but the whole point of the X-Men is saving a world that hates and fears them.
Right, which makes them the greater heroes.
Yes, Justin, dude, I get your point. You're not supposed to allow them to die, but you don't have. There's a difference. Everybody keeps thinking, oh well, if you're not proactive, then you're just letting yourself die. No, you can be defensive. Defense is a thing that exists. You can protect yourself without going out and harming others actively.
Well, Charles has access to thousands of years of memories now.
Yes.
And they all kind of turn out bad. I can see why it would break him, to see that his vision was ill thought out and coming to a conclusion that it's essentially impossible to achieve the dream that he had fought so hard for. He spent a large portion of his life, and then of course Genosha. 16 million of mutants wiped out. Almost all mutants were wiped out kind of at the beginning of the book. They're in a pretty disparate place, so I think Hickman did a good job setting the stage for this to happen.
What do you guys think about the fact that Moira is only allowing Charles to read her mind once, and she states that she gave her thoughts, her impression, her intent behind everything during that initial read?
I have a lot of thoughts on this one. So I think in the 9th lifetime, she and Apocalypse, she joins up with Apocalypse, and they have a plan on how she's going to get the information that they need about Nimrod and go back. It doesn't say that they didn't have another plan. So I think that she gave Charles the information that he needed in this 10th lifetime. But I think she might have went over and her and Apocalypse might have another plan brewing where they're kind of using Charles and Eric, and that's why she's manipulating in her journals and stuff to execute her other plan, because there's only 3 mutants she talks about: Eric, Charles, and Apocalypse, but you don't ever see her actually interact with Apocalypse. So I think there might be something shady going on there. What do you think about that?
I completely agree. There's something going on there. Apocalypse is always throughout this, that shot of him sitting in the background looking on with Professor X and Magneto, and you can tell there's something going on behind those eyes. He's got a further plan, and something's up.
Doc, did you have any ideas about that or any thoughts after that issue?
No, I just think that Apocalypse is going to Apocalypse. That's what he's going to do. So he's temporarily fine with this, but he doesn't understand why everybody's celebrating. So he's just kind of sitting around going, all right, well, I got like 3 more things to do on my list before, next week.
So you don't think there's a chance that the reason that Moira doesn't want to be scanned by Charles and that she doesn't want to be anywhere near precog because she doesn't want anyone to know that she's actually made plans after she gave Charles the information with Apocalypse. She executed a different plan.
It doesn't matter. It's a different Apocalypse.
Yeah, but she could have given him the information.
Yeah, I understand that. She could have given this Apocalypse that same information, but it doesn't mean that this Apocalypse agreed to her plan. The other Apocalypse might have, but that guy's dead. That guy and everybody in that universe is dead.
No, I got that point.
This is an entirely different Apocalypse that she doesn't have any history with. That she didn't, talk to and hang out with and join up with and spend years with to come up with a plan that he hadn't changed and adjusted as he got used to another human another mutant being close to him. So all the factors, all the variables of the life are wholly different, and there's no guarantee that this Apocalypse would have ever agreed to it.
Well, I'm not saying there's any guarantees, but there's a reason she doesn't want to be scanned. There's a reason she doesn't want to be near a precog, and I think it's because she has other motives. She has another plan that she doesn't want Charles to know about.
Well, yeah. Oh, yeah, there's definitely that, but we just don't know what that plan is, and we don't know who came up with it.
Also, I got a question. If Wolverine had memories implanted, right? Can Xavier, is he always see past those implants, or do the telepaths, can they be fooled by memory implants?
That's what I'm wondering.
Telepaths can be fooled by memory implants.
So I'm wondering if all of this is, if she may not even be a mutant at all, and somebody just implanted all those memories into her mind.
Well, that would be really cool.
I would like this. I would like that.
That would be very deceitful.
So what do you guys think about Raced and Margie's point? There's a promotional artwork of Hawks and Pox with Apocalypse and a human not transformed Moira kissing that may have yet to come to pass.
I think that promotional the promotional art was more symbolic than anything. I don't think it was actually meant to be a literal scene, because that was just kind of an unseen thing from when implying that Moira and Apocalypse, got together in her, what was that, her 9th life?
Yes.
And we know that happened. Now, whether there was anything romantic is kind of irrelevant. And the Xavier, the Xavier Lincoln thing, that's kind of symbolic too, because old Xavier's dead. The Xavier we all knew is he's dead. He's dead and gone, as far as we're concerned, because he doesn't have the same dream. He doesn't behave the same way. He's basically bald Magneto. So Xavier's dead. So that's like a memorial to who he used to be.
Okay. So we got a question from Komodo Dragon. I guess this is for you, Doc, but we'll open it up after you answer it. Why do you feel this is an offensive move? AVX was an offensive move that failed. I'd say this is more of an evolution of both Xavier's and Magneto's vision.
I think it's an offensive move. I mean, otherwise,
I think destroying the mother mold was offensive.
That was, but that's okay. I'm cool. Look, I consider that one a defensive move, because you don't have to just put up strong walls. When you know that somebody's building a piece of equipment that is going to destroy, and they didn't attack the rest of humanity. They just attacked a space station full of a bunch of engineers that wanted to kill mutants.
Total preemptive strike.
Yeah. Now,
well, that's offensive, though, right? Lance, or I'm not. Sorry,
okay,
Lance,
fine.
You're a military guy. I'm a military guy. That's offensive, right?
That it is offensive, but it's absolutely necessary. If it's, hey, they're building a nuclear weapon and they're going to launch it, you take it out before it gets off the ground. You don't wait to respond. It's an offensive maneuver, but it's absolutely critical that you do it, because you can't defend past that point.
Sometimes the best defense is a good offense.
Exactly.
Yeah. But I guess the is it a little bit of an evolution of both of their visions? I guess, but hey, yay segregation. I don't like, I like the fact that they have a homeland, but I don't like that, but every time they've had a homeland so far, it's literally ended very, very poorly.
Mm-hmm.
For, you had Genosha after when Magneto got handed it.
Utopia, right?
When you had Utopia.
Xavier's mansion.
The mansion, however many after it kind of opened up and became like a school. You had Providence when Cable did it. You had Avalon when Magneto did that in space. Every one of these ended really poorly.
And the Essential.
So, yeah, the Essential. Yeah. I mean, although I don't really, I'm still trying to figure out how Major X kind of fits in. I don't really. It's a cool Elseworld story. But yes, is it a AVX? AVX was an offensive move only in response to Avengers hostility. Had the Avengers not come to Utopia and decided to invade a country, AVX doesn't happen. AVX is a response to dealing with Avengers aggression. But it doesn't happen otherwise.
All right, we got a question. This is for you, Stacks. I feel like there has to be an X-Men versus other team event next. then everything culminates in a mutant civil war event. Am I crazy to think that?
No, absolutely not. I think you could very well be heading to another AVX type event. You could be heading to.
What about a 4VX?
Say again.
What about a 4VX? Fantastic Four versus.
Oh, absolutely. Absolutely. With they already hinted at Franklin Richards, so I think that could totally happen. I think the Avengers are totally an option. I mean, with everything they're doing, they've already talked about more. We've already seen Black Panther. Wakanda basically said we don't need it. So I mean, and he's leading the Avengers now. So it's very possible we have a big event, and I think it could turn to a mutant civil war, especially with Mystique running around on the council. There's no reason with her tiebacks to Destiny and them pulling the wool over her eyes on that. I think they're planting seeds that are going to cost them in the long run.
Awesome. So Pele, I know that your son, he likes to read the tea leaves in these comic books. Is he seeing something similar?
Well, to an extent, he thinks that I'm hearing all kinds of echoing. What's going on?
I'm hearing beeping.
That too.
Yeah, same here.
But he thinks that Moira's been memory implanted, and that all this is a very elaborate ruse. But
Well, that would be-
which is why she doesn't want to be scanned again, and she doesn't want it. Doesn't want a somebody around who can predict any future or anything like that. She just that's just very suspicious. And he listed a couple other things too. He's talking about at breakfast one day, but yeah, he's pretty convinced that it's those are memory implants. But I just what's the point of? I guess I could answer my own question on it. Never mind. Go on.
The reason I wouldn't buy the memory implants is because Hickman's done a good job of capturing all the previous X-Men lore and putting it in one of those previous lives. So if they got rid of that, it would kind of kill the nice little bow he's put on most of the continuity.
Yeah. I'm not saying it wouldn't be crappy, but what's that? Subverting expectations. I wonder if this is just a way to subvert everyone's expectations.
We lost Stax. Hopefully he'll come back. So Doc, what do you think? Is it going to be?
Sorry.
Go ahead, Lance.
I've read a decent number of Jonathan Hickman writing at this point. I've read his Ultimate Avengers run, Manhattan Projects, and the other one, Black Monday Murders. He often does not pull the rug out from under you. Usually his stuff all leads to a giant culmination,
Like a reveal.
Yeah, so I don't think there's going to be a big fake out in this run. I've never seen him do it. So
Who's echoing?
Yeah, I'm hearing it again.
I think it's Stax.
It was me when I came back in. Sorry, guys. My phone dropped for some reason.
Okay, yeah. I mean, I could see some sort of reveal coming, but we kind of haven't gotten it yet. I mean, I figured if there was going to be a reveal, it would have been in the last issue.
It was a huge reveal.
Yeah, I know, but if there was some sort of other reveal, like this is, I think, this is what our dynamic is going forward.
Oh, yeah, I agree with that. I think he was just explaining House of X and Powers of X with the last issue. I think if you read the whole thing now, it all makes a lot more sense the second time through, and it just kind of is like an epilogue more than it is a big finale, I would say.
Yeah, because
Okay.
it just answers the 3 questions and ends at the exact same spot at House of X number 6, which felt like it ended the story anyway. But he went back and answered what's the 6th life, why is Charles crazy, and there's another one in there. I can't remember right now. But
I think there's something going on with that Cerebro helmet. He seems to act different when he has it on.
Well, I think he might be being controlled by that to a degree, but I'm not really sure.
He seems worse when he has it on. Like he seems like he's like more of a like almost like sociopathic, like crazy person when he's got the helmet on. When he has it off, he's more like Charles. When he has it on, he looks like he's just like a different character almost.
It's a good point.
Mm-hmm. I wonder if Krakoa might be controlling him to a degree.
I was about to mention there's a couple things. The librarian had a similar helmet in, I think, Powers of X1, and Cypher at the very first time on the island, him touching Krakoa, you don't wonder if Cypher isn't some kind of plant possibly that him and Krakoa through some other third party have a bigger scheme. Possibly. I'm throwing stuff at the wall here, but
Well, I mean, there was also the point where he couldn't. He's like, well, it takes a long time to translate what Krakoa is trying to tell me. That it'll take a while. But if that is that true, or is it that he was being overrun with information and Krakoa was taking control of him at that time?
Well, and Cypher already is connected somewhat to the Phalanx because of is it Warlock?
Because of Warlock, yeah.
And we saw when he touched the leaves on Krakoa, they started changing, like they were being infected.
Thinking about how the X-Men are using Krakoa, I wonder if they get into a big scrap with an enemy, if they're going to take something like the Brood and just throw it on someone. Like if they'll take some of their old enemies and just like now that they have achieved this higher power, just be like, okay, well, you're gonna mess with us, like have fun with the Brood and just throw them on. We'll see what other kind of enemies they could use. I think this version of X-Men is much more manipulative, so
Definitely more. I mean, yeah, I don't think that there's very much that they're not capable of at this point, which is kind of what Doc was talking about before, where it's a little disappointing. I don't think that they would hesitate to do anything practically if it meant continuing mutant kind.
And once again, Jean Grey is the wild card because after she sees Scott die, we haven't had much interaction with her yet.
Well, she created the first law of Krakoa.
Right. But I'd be interested to see how she, what her attitude's like moving forward.
So, Doc, one of the thoughts that I had was that, one of the things that they're going to have to do, in the new ongoing X-Men is save Charles from himself because he's kind of broke, and I think Cerebro may be affecting him. And I do think maybe that's where Fallen Angels is you're going to have a group of outcast mutants that don't like what's going on in Krakoa, and they kind of end up knowing the truth, and they have to save Charles. Do you think that could be coming up?
I would like to believe so. I don't know if that's what we're going to get, though. Honestly,
because apparently there's going to be several mutant precogs that are going to be persona non grata on Krakoa, and they're going to kind of have an idea of what's going on. They're going to be like, we've seen some of what's going to happen, and we have to do something about it.
Yeah, yeah. There. Well, outside of Destiny, okay, Blind's dead. Destiny's dead.
Franklin.
What other precogs? No, what other precogs are there?
I thought Franklin was a precog.
Not really.
I thought
he's a universal manipulator. Almost Phoenix level.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I know that. Yeah,
but I don't think he's a precog. I mean, I guess theoretically he could be. But
Charles is going to raise all the precogs. He's going to raise mutant that's fallen, correct?
Yeah. Well, I mean, because you have the original version of Negasonic Teenage Warhead was a precog.
Mm-hmm.
Although I think they've essentially retconned her. But other than that there's not really any other precogs.
Well, Charles talked about Destiny in that one point where he's like, they keep calling for us to bring back Destinies. I've promised that I'm going to do it, but I'll promise them they'll do it tomorrow. And then tomorrow I'll promise I'll do it tomorrow. And I'll just keep promising the next day.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
So and I get there's no intention of bringing Destiny back.
And that's only going to work with Mystique for so long before she takes matters into her own hands.
Exactly.
Goes and breathes Sabretooth.
Exactly.
The man was railroaded anyway. He should be free. I don't want to talk about this again.
But I guess.
So what do we?
Well, I guess. Go ahead.
No.
No.
So what do we think about the ultimate, the government on Krakoa? It's kind of split up, kind of weird. You have the Autumn branch, which is Charles, Eric, and Apocalypse. You have Summer with Storm, Jean Grey, and Nightcrawler. You have Winter with Exodus, Mr. Sinister, and Mystique, and then you have the Hellfire Trading Company. There's Spring. It's like, how do you think that's going to work? Because you have a lot of competing ideologies and things. Do you think it's going to eventually fracture? I think it's a terrible idea.
Yeah, it's awful. That's absolutely awful. You've got basically Winter and Spring, which are completely untrustworthy, and that they need to be integrated with mutants who are more trustworthy and can set better examples. It's just. Oh man, that's a mess. The
whole point of that is if you put them on your council, they at least believe they have a voice. And then when they don't have a voice is when they start acting violently. They start engaging in action rather than rhetoric. And as long as you keep them on your council, you can keep them in the rhetorical realm rather than the actual realm with what they do. So they can get voted down, and they'll lose their power if they actually act upon it. But you're giving them a voice.
But how long will that last?
Until they
keep getting voted down.
Until they keep getting voted down too often. But the thing is, these guys aren't going to always have. Oh, see, the thing is, with most of the X-Men villains, none of them are really. I mean, outside of like Apocalypse, not many of them are legitimate. They don't have any good redeemable ideas. It's often just their approach to them that is poor. And if you can give them what they want, just a different way to get there, you might have you might have some success with keeping them on board.
But do you really want them on board?
Yeah.
Well,
how long can you cut deals with the devil before you are the devil yourself?
Oh no. I get that. I don't disagree. I'm pointing out their logic of it, when they've historically, if they didn't put them on the council, if they didn't give them a say, if they didn't do anything like that, then all they'd be doing is spending all their time fighting the rogue mutants that are working in the same direction but poorly towards their goals. If they can bring them on board,
you've basically limited their influence by putting them in a position of influence where they're close hold to you.
Correct. That's their way of limiting the amount of destruction that they can cause. Because every minute that the X-Men are spent, that the X-Men spend dealing with one of Exodus's schemes, or one of Sinister's, or one of this guy or that guy or whomever's, plans is one more minute that they're not, dedicated towards, what their ultimate goals are for mutant kind. So eliminate the villains, eliminate the rogue actors, and you don't have to dedicate the resources to stopping those rogue actors.
Mm-hmm. So, Lance, I want to talk to you about this, and then we'll open it up. What did you think about the conclusion to the X3 Ascension story arc with the failings? Was that what you were expecting? Did you find it satisfying? It was kind of the most ambiguous story overall. I think everyone knew Moira had to be there somewhere. I wasn't expecting her to be living in a zoo. What did you think of the way that ended and the implications of it?
I thought it was an interesting plot twist to do something different with the humans in the X-Men universe. I think that oftentimes they just are throwing Sentinels around and have the government committees, and Charles has to go to DC, and we've kind of seen all of that before. And this was kind of like, well, what about genetic mutations and genetic engineering? And I found it like an interesting, like 2001 Space Odyssey vibe going on, where they've like achieved some type of godhood with the creating a new type of human, but then like having some type of deal with I think was the idea that if you reach this type of intelligence, the phalanx will like come assimilate you. Is that kind of what they're saying?
Yeah, they had to create a certain amount of intelligence to like bait the phalanx to come and check them out before they could offer their intelligence to the phalanx and be accepted. I
see. Yeah, that was really cool. I don't personally know a ton about the phalanx, but I was reading the diagrams and stuff. So how the phalanx fits into this storyline, I don't quite know yet. But it's interesting. Hickman has a million ways he can go with any of these storylines, it seems. So far, my favorite was definitely when they raided the Godhead thing in space. What was that called?
The Mother Mold.
Or Mother Mold. That was my favorite part. When I just love seeing the X-Men go on epic missions. So I love that. But I'm just learning more and more about the X-Men every time I read an issue, because like a lot of this stuff is harkening back, it seems, to the 80s, and I've only read a little of that. I don't know a ton about it.
Mm-hmm. Stacks, what did you think of the X3 time, the Ascension timeline, the Phalanx? What did you think about that story and the way it ended? Was it what you?
I really liked it. I really thought it was cool the way that I think the librarian getting pinned to the tree was totally his. He allowed it to happen. I know that was a point of discussion for some folks, but I like how it basically, in the end, his humanity was what drove him to go down to talk to Moira and Wolverine and to say, is this existence that we're approaching, is it going to be a real existence? Is this going to be a reality, or is it going to be a fake existence? I think you called it the fake cipher from the Matrix moment.
The reverse cipher.
Or the reverse moment. And that was a perfect analogy for it, because there really is this that his humanity ultimately being the thing that keeps them from achieving godhood just really resonated with me. And then something about the librarian during those scenes, I think, is going to be long term. It's going to come back when you reread that in 6 months. It's going to have long stretching consequences, because there was very much a Garden of Eden vibe, and with the coloring and everything, how he was in the dark and you could just see his eyes. It had very much that serpent vibe to it. There's something else going on there, and I half suspect this is a long-term plant from Nimrod for some reason. I just got out back in, I think, Powers of X 2, where Nimrod said he's always looking out for himself before they went and confronted Apocalypse. I've not been convinced that Nimrod doesn't have a long-term plan, that he understands something far beyond what we previously thought when they threw him in the sun. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm. Pele, what did you think about that XP timeline? That was it was really interesting. I kind of dug the way they ended it, but what did you think about it?
Yeah, it brings a lot of things to mind. I don't think that he's. Yeah, I don't think that we've seen the last of him. I don't think that. Yeah, I just don't think we've seen the last of him. It's going to be very interesting the next time that and it's going to be in a way that we're not going to expect. It's going to come at us from the side. So,
all right. So speaking of, this won't be the last time we see this person. I'm going to throw this one to you as well. We have a question that says, "What do you guys think of the inclusion of Rasputin in the variant covers? I really love everything about this Chimera, but I've been criticized some other boards. I think he's talking about Rasputin being a part of the like being sucked into a black hole, which we've been told like transcends time now. Do you think that maybe we'll see Rasputin arrive in this universe as the second Chimera mutant? Pele?
Eventually, I think that I think that there's going to be a lot of story before then. But I think eventually we will. I don't think that there's anything that Hickman's. Oh gosh, I mean, I don't think there's anything that Hickman's revealed that isn't going to be at least partially addressed or is going to have some type of contact with the story sometime in the next few years. I don't think that he puts anything in his story that's not important. No matter how tangential or whatever it could be. And he is going, he's bound and determined to tie everything from all the other X-Men stories together. So yeah,
his own.
Exactly. And I keep getting that tickle in the back of my mind regarding all of. There's something I need to go back and reread I need to go back and reread a couple series.
I have a question, though. Are we even sure that Jonathan Hickman has anything to do with these variant covers? I mean, how much control does he really have over the series? Like, I know he's writing every bit of it, but he didn't do the legacy numbering in the new number 1, and he just may not have time to design variants ideas for characters. And
I don't think he has anything to do with cover choices except for the main A cover.
I would think that, right? I mean, maybe we're just reading a little too much into the variants.
Well, maybe. Doc, what did you think about the idea that Rasputin could come back because she got sucked into a singularity, which we know is a black hole?
Yes, of course it can happen, but they've also said that the singularities and at the bottom of every black hole is a dominion.
Mm-hmm.
So it doesn't necessarily come out anywhere. It exists outside of space and time. Now, that's assuming that she somehow manages to fall into this black hole, survive it, and not be crushed to nothing, and then not get destroyed by the Dominion civilization that is at the core of it. Sure, I guess.
I'm feeling skepticism, Doc. I'm feeling skepticism.
I'm just saying, eventually, yeah, I guess, sure, something, I guess. I'm just saying that is it possible? Yes, of course it's possible.
That's where I'm at. That's what I'm thinking now too. I'm like, it's possible. Yeah, it can happen.
But I don't think that was necessarily a plan.
Right.
I think it's just one of those, okay, there's nothing to say it can't happen.
All right. So we got Dominic Powell, a new member of my Geekspan team. He's the He's the comic whiz, and he's got a question. We're going to throw it to Stacks, because I know you're limited on time. What do you think the reactions of the X-Men's non-mutant members and allies will be seeing their friends and allies in this new yet dark path?
I think that's a tough one. I think it's going to be very individualized. I don't know, man. I mean, they've always kind of been. They stood aside. Go back to the conversation between Cyclops and Captain America back in the day. Goes back to and the one with Reed Richards and Cyclops in this one. Or I'm sorry, it was actually Susan Storm. How long do you think we're going to sit around and watch our children die? And I think all the regular heroes, they're going to have to respect that. I mean, at some point, you have to respect the fact that they want to protect the next generation. I mean, so I do think you're going to have some problems from, Latveria, Wakanda, Russia, wherever else. But I don't know. It's going to be very I think you're going to have a very split Marvel universe going forward.
I like it. So, Doc, what do you think is the most logical next opponent for the mutants? Is it the Avengers? Is it the Fantastic Four? Or do you think it's the Illuminati?
Oh, I think you're going to have numerous enemies. I think each book is going to kind of go in a different direction. I think New Mutants is going to go into the cosmic direction, with them in Shi'ar space, probably fighting the Phalanx as one of their enemies. I think you're going to have the Marauders going up against.
Hopefully, Namor. Please say Namor.
Well, probably at some point. I maybe, but I think it's also going to be. Well, first of all, did they ever finish what they were doing with the Avengers stuff over in Avengers? Because I dropped the book around War of the Realms, and they were building up to that, the Russia thing, the Avengers, the Squadron Supreme of America. It
got picked up in Invaders.
Okay,
but Stats is the one that's Invaders right now.
And Invaders are really good.
Okay, well, but are they dealing with that? Because remember they were kind of basically creating a bunch of different factions or super teams for each superpower. Did they ever do anything with the Atlantis part? Because remember, Namor wanted to destroy the surface realm or whatever.
He's still working on it.
Okay. All right. Well,
he's actually made some headway. He actually sent some parts of America under the water and turned them all into mermaids. Or mermaids,
awesome, right? Because cool. All right, whatever.
And I'm 2 issues behind on that one, so.
Okay, well, I guess my point is, are they going to tie it into that thing, or what? So maybe Namor, but I'm thinking more along the lines of like Wakanda, Latveria, Iran, kind of the places where the Hellfire Club would be trying to use influence in black markets and whatnot, because that's where the Marauders are probably going to be focused on. I think there's going to be a different enemy kind of for every title. Now, what the X-Men title enemy is, I don't know. That's the big question. Because that one's the one that doesn't seem to really have a set direction.
Well, apparently it's just one shots featuring Cyclops and whoever he picks for that mission.
Yeah, but there needs to be some sort of continuing subplot that connects them. Otherwise, that's really a recipe for failure.
No, I think there's going to be an overarching main story arc that actually runs through the X-Men and hopefully into Uncanny X-Men, but I guess they're using the Uncanny X-Men numbering legacy for X-Men, so
yeah, I'm still trying to figure out their legacy numbering on this. It doesn't make any sense.
I don't understand that. It doesn't make any sense.
Yeah, so that one,
I did the math, and it does not make sense. There's no way to come up with 645 issues.
Well,
What
count
about
X-Men and Uncanny X-Men together?
Uncanny X-Men Winter's End from Scene of Grace?
Then you'd have to do Uncanny X-Men: The Heroic Age, Uncanny X-Men, the No Way Out, the Uncanny X-Men, all of the 3-issue, tie-ins from other events and whatnot.
Well, Doc, you know who you're dealing with on this, right?
I know. I'm dealing with a bunch of idiots in editorial. That
You guys
listen.
remember?
Let me use my. You got to let me use my catchphrase. You're dealing with the Legion of Doofuses here. You just can't think of it like normal people, man. It
I
could be
know.
anything.
Do you remember
Math.
the guy who made this was all already sorted out for Marvel. The guy who made the Marvel Encyclopedia books, they started renumbering all their volumes about 5 years ago, and he quit. And he had all this stuff figured out, which volume, what numbering, everything. And you could buy a Marvel Encyclopedia of any main series and read through them and get plot synopsis and everything. And so then he just got disgusted with from what I heard, I can't say for a fact, but I heard that he was disgusted with them renumbering all the time and screwing with all of his archiving. And but basically ever since they started legacy numbering, they've only gotten 2 titles right on numbers, and I believe they are Savage Sword of Conan and Conan the Barbarian, which are volume 2s.
I thought they did Thor.
Yeah.
Okay.
Which one?
No,
I thought they had Thor all right. There's one of them that was all right.
Or they
they added a
Thor was
couple
even
of
more
maxi series.
Yeah, they added on
So-
Jason Aaron's series. They added Aaron's series onto that too.
He has 7 different imprints of that Thor run.
Yeah. The only point of that was to get it close to 700 so that they could
For milestone,
have an issue 700 anniversary.
the $8 comic book.
The only reason
Lame.
to pick that for what they selected. But if there was any sort of internal consistency to it, it wouldn't have made any damn sense.
Well, if there's any sort of
It would have been
internal
like,
consistency, the dude wouldn't have quit.
yeah, good point.
Yeah, I wouldn't. Can you imagine working for those idiots? Like, you want to do what?
Oh,
You what?
oh,
Like, all of a sudden, like blood starts coming out of your ears. You're like, aneurysm? What are you doing to me here?
yeah.
Oh, not
But
as a
no, I mean-
historian. There's no way.
But yeah, there needs to be some sort of kind of underlying subplot to X-Men, or else what the hell's the point of it?
Well, I mean,
Otherwise,
supposedly the first
X-Men
like,
Unlimited.
2 years of story arc are already planned out. I'm quite certain he actually has a really big story planned out. We've got Tevius Smolka in the questions. He's been asking lots of them. Let's ask this one to Doc. Doc, where's Legion?
Where is Legion? Oh, who? I don't know. Is he still sort of dead following? I mean, what? I didn't even bother to finish Age of X-Man. Like, I literally, they ended up in my pull box. I just taped the bag shut and put them away.
You didn't finish
even
Age of
bother.
X-Men?
No, I gave
What?
up because it was so terrible.
Yeah, it was pretty awful.
It was so awful. The
What about
last
the
2
Liam
issues of No, I couldn't. That was all Perch. I let him have fun with the absurdity of that. That made me feel like I was about to just literally have an aneurysm. So I said no.
Yeah, it's a
no, I
disjointed
put- I-
mess.
But so I put them all together. So I don't remember how Age of X-Man Omega ended. Not a clue. So wherever he was at the end of that, that's probably where he still is. So if he was dead there, still dead.
He's probably a little too powerful, right?
Legion, Legion is way too
Let's keep
powerful.
him in
That's
the
why
box,
they always
right?
have to,
Put him in the box.
Yes, you have to take him off the board with regularity, because if you don't, it gets goofy.
Mm-hmm. The same thing's going to happen with Franklin. I think that's like the big. He's the powder keg waiting to explode, right?
Basically, yeah.
When Franklin says, "Mommy, I want to go home to Krakoa," and then everything's going to explode.
But
Pretty much, yeah.
So, how old is he right now? He's still quite young, correct?
9, 8.
Oh,
9.
yeah. That's the thing with Franklin. It's the same thing as Legion. There's a handful of these like ultra powerful mutants, but the problem is you can't leave them in regular continuity.
Yeah.
With you have to constantly take them off the board.
Mm-hmm.
Have them either in some other universe or on a different plane of existence, or de-age them or depower them, or make them go so crazy that they're basically comatose. You need to do that with regularity, and they have to do that with Franklin too. Franklin's like that. Legion is like that. They age him up, and then use him for something, and then they de-age him again.
All right, Pele. This is a Pele question. Did Franklin get eaten by Immortal Hulk?
Did what?
Did Franklin get eaten by Immortal Hulk?
No, not yet. I think that there's going to be a very interesting amalgamation going on if the one below all gets his way. But I think that's going to run headlong into what the X-Men are planning, and
all right,
it's going to it's complicated. But I think that Cates and Ewing are definitely on the same page, and there's a connection there between Krakoa and Aruko, whatever the other side. Yeah. There's definitely a connection there, and it's going to, and then also you've got and then that also connects around with the symbiotes. So it's they're all three are of those ideas are heading towards the same intersection at 180 miles an hour, and I think that they're all going to hit about the same time, and it's going to be, they're trying to converge for a huge, massive series or a sequence of series that are going to, be in the culmination of numerous story arcs. And, they're going to try to create, the one series to dominate, to rule them all. And it's going to be interesting to see. I don't think that what we're seeing right now on any of those is going to last in the state that it's in for very long. So,
all right, let's put a bow on Powers of 10 number 6. Stacks, what are your final thoughts on the issue and the series finale?
I'm just excited to see where it's going now. Honestly, I'm at my LCS right now. They're having a huge sale, and planning on picking up all 7 of the new titles to include Wolverine going forward. So I think they really went and rebuilt the X-Men, and hats off to Jonathan Hickman on that one. As far as the issue itself, I was satisfied with it. It was a satisfying ending. It left a lot of questions out there. It built a bunch of stuff going forward, and I'm on board again. So happy to be on board with X-Men again.
Awesome. All right, I think Lance is still out. Pele, can you wrap up your thoughts on Powers of 10 number 6 and the finale?
I think that like people were saying, it's nothing really new on this except for the big reveal of her 6th life. But it's sort of shaped into what we've seen along the way for the last 11 issues. And I don't like what the X-Men have become, but I like that there's a story there that you kind of sink your teeth into. And they're not the undeniably the good guys anymore, but at the same time, I don't think that the state that they're in is going to last forever. So it's going to be interesting to see how they evolve to become the good guys again, become the heroes again.
Mm-hmm. All right, so I just got this question, and I really want to address it here. If people haven't seen my December Marvel solicits, you should go watch that video, but I will address it right here. Incoming, what's that about? Incoming is a $10 preview comic. It's just a bunch of preview pages of what all the Marvel comics are going to be doing in 2020. If you buy this, you are literally paying Marvel for the free preview material they should be giving you and your LCS.
Absolutely.
Incoming is not a comic book. It's not a comic event. It's going to have a little murder mystery tied in it, so they can say it was an event comic, but it is just a free preview so that you can pay for the material that they should be giving you to get you excited for next year's comics. It is an absolute abomination. It's one of the reasons C.B. Sapolsky and the Legion of Doofuses have their name. They are complete idiots. They have all the momentum in the world, and they're doing something stupid like Incoming and making comic book readers pay an exorbitant price for a damn preview comic.
Yep.
It's ridiculous. Pele,
Yep.
you're a retailer. What do you think?
Unless somebody specifically demands that they want it, I'm not buying it. I think it's a ripoff. I think it's the information that's normally given to the press that's going to be, just wrapped up in a, with fancy covers. They're probably going to have several incentive covers for each damn one of them. And, and sold to the public. And it's a load of I can't say that now, but it's a load of crap. It's they're taking advantage of people again. But the thing is, I've not really had anybody really, ask about it very much. So I'm not going to bother. I've talked to other stop owners who are like, oh, that's a big ask for $10. Maybe if it were a couple bucks, and if it was published on newsprint or something like that. But they're going for the prestige format. They're going for the high price tag, and and they're hoping that they'll get people that are going to get on board with, oh, well, this is going to be the first appearance of so and so. This is going to be the first. No, it's a bad idea, and I think it really shows Marvel's desperation right now that they would even consider something like this.
It's Marvel Legacy 3.0.
Yeah,
because
good
you
point.
had Marvel Legacy, and then you had Marvel 1000.
Yep.
And well, it might be Legacy 4.0. Did 1001 even have any story in it, or was it just the same thing as 1000? I didn't even read
just snippets.
Yeah, 1000 was so bad I couldn't revisit that idea.
But 1001 that came out, that's what I wanted to know.
Yeah.
If it was the same thing as 1000,
it was just chunks. It was chunks. There was one story in it that was I guess you could actually call it a part of a story, but at the same time it's just chunks again. And no.
Well, maybe Pele, maybe it would have been a better comic if the gender ratio was more even.
Oh yeah. Mm-hmm.
That was an issue.
Good point. Yeah, it was absolutely.
Take it from your boy Wes. If you see an incoming comic, just go past it. It's not an actual comic. It's a preview with material that they should be giving to you or being sold for $2 or $2.50 to get you
absolutely
next year's comics. All right, let's go wrap up Powers of 10 number 6 again. Sorry about the rant, but that whole marketing thing pisses me off. Lance, what are your final thoughts on Powers of 10 number 6 and the way it finished up the series?
Well, I think that Hickman has put the X-Men in an entirely new scenario, and just based on our conversation, it has us all guessing what's going to happen, and I think that's this is. I was talking earlier with you this week. I was at a bookstore and people were talking about House of X, Powers of X, and I didn't join in the conversation, but it's great to see that type of excitement around these titles. I would go so far as to say this is probably the most popular the X-Men have been in 25 years, and will continue to build. And once the trades come out, it'll start hitting the people who wait for books. And and one thing I didn't get a chance to comment on yet, you're talking about the allies and how they're going to react. I think that the Avengers won't be able to do anything because they're run by the government, and the government has to acknowledge them as a country. So they're not going to be able to do anything. I don't know if the Fantastic Four can do anything because I don't know who gives them their funding. I think a lot of other characters are going to be standoffish with them and not work with them anymore, but they're not going to be able to do anything. It's going to be, I think this is going to be a pure X-Men story. I don't think you're going to see Thor show up. I don't think you're going to see Hulk show up. It's just going to be straight up X-Men lore. And I think for a lot of X-Men fans, from what I've seen, this is all they've been wanting. They're sick of the crossovers, they're sick of the storylines they've seen before. X-Men's been around for 50 years, so they've seen a lot of different ideas and storylines. And I think that this kind of launches a whole just wave of possibilities. They could go any sort of way, but Hickman obviously has a plan. He's given all of his spin-off titles ample ground to be successful. Whether or not they are successful, we'll see. But it looks, he has done I would say a masterful job at reigniting the fire in the X-Men. I haven't seen anything like this since I started buying comics on a monthly basis. So I thought it was fantastic.
Awesome. All right, Doc, we're going to give you the final word on Powers of 10 number 6 before we go on to our X-Men essential readings. What are your thoughts?
I like it, but I want to see how they. I would like to see some sort of plan to get them back towards a more traditional X-Men by the end of the story.
Yeah, this is going to have to be a redemption arc there. It's going to take a long time.
Yeah, and if they spend the next couple of years trying to find their way back to who the X-Men are, I'd be good with that. I just don't want this to be the future of the X-Men, because that's not the X-Men that I love. And it's good, it's interesting, but it's not the X-Men anymore.
I'm seeing a lot of people in the comics community that I strongly dislike, that are, I'm not going to get into political terms here, but they're, those type of people. And they're really excited, and they're like, oh, well, this is the way the X-Men are going to have to be. And they're going to have to make people accept them, and they're going to have to make people. And I'm sitting back and I'm thinking, no, this is not what Hickman envisioned. It's going to come around to, there was a dupe, there was a swindle, a scam, and the X-Men are going to get back to being the more righteous heroes that they were. It's not going to end up the way the SJWs want it to. Let's put it that way.
There doesn't need to be a scam or some sort of swindle or dupe or anything like that. They just they were wrong. They can just be wrong.
Yeah, I understand, but I'm thinking there's something going on with Cerebro and Charles. There's definitely something going on with Moira's story. So, I think that there is a dupe. Charles is being hoodwinked, and a lot of the other X-Men are too, and the evil ones are going along with it because they finally have power for the first time. So,
Okay, well, I'm just trying to get my final words on this one.
Oh, I'm sorry. Go ahead. I didn't mean to.
I think that, you know, it needs to find its way back to being more traditional X-Men over the next few years. Otherwise, I think you'll turn off a lot of, if this is the 100% the future, the dream is no longer the dream from the X-Men of the original X-Men. If this is a new dream for the future and there's no coming back to the old one, then I think you're going to lose a lot of the X-Men fans, like the real like the long-term traditional X-Men fans. Mm-hmm. They like that dream. So
all right,
that's just my final words on it.
That's Doc's final words, and we're going to give Lamont Hall, great reader, he always has great comments on my X-Men videos. He's going to get the last word on Powers of 10 number 6. I want a more traditional Professor X, not the human loving one, but just a father figure to them all again. I agree. I think we all want that Professor X back that was more of a father figure and wanted to take care of his children. Thank you very much for that, Lamont. Now it's time to move on to our essential X-Men reads. And I'm going first because I don't know as much about X-Men as you guys. But mine's going to be Ed Brisson's Extermination. Doc, who was the one that decided to bring all the younger X-Men in the current X-Men timeline? Was that Bendis?
Bendis. Yeah, Bendis.
Dumbest thing I've ever heard of in my life. It completely messed up continuity. It made no sense. Brisson basically fixes it in a nice 5-story arc. Extermination. Who was the artist on that one? Was that Pepe Larraz?
I think so. I can never keep the Stuart Immonen clones separate between Asrar, Immonen, Larraz, and Perez and Silva. I can never keep them straight.
But yes, it is.
They're all just Stuart Immonen.
And it's got Marte Gracia, the artist team for the House of X series. If you want to see them do some X-Men before that, with Ed Brisson, who's going to be writing New Mutants. It's a great story. I love it. There's some wonderful imagery with Archangel and his wings that I thought was nuts. And it's a lot of fun. What did you think about that story, Doc?
Oh, I loved it. It was a great way to fix a significant mistake from Bendis. Bendis brought the only reason he did that story is because he wanted to bring back Jean, but he didn't want to bring back Jean. He didn't want to just resurrect Jean. So he had to figure out a clever way to do it, and he considered that his clever way to bring back Jean.
Mm-hmm.
That was literally the only point of that whole run, was to bring back Jean, but not bring back Jean.
It wasn't clever. It was a convoluted mess, and it made no sense because now they're not in the old timeline.
Yep.
How are they supposed to fix all the defeat all the enemies in the past? They're not there to do
Magic.
It's completely stupid.
Magic. Yeah.
But Pele, did you have any thoughts on Extermination?
Not really.
Man, Pele, you are a buzzkill today. What is wrong with you? Is your bunny okay?
My bunny? He's okay. He's okay.
All right. I thought maybe
fine.
Maybe the cats kicked your bunny again or something.
I did have to bury one of them this week. That sucked.
Oh, see, I didn't mean to bring that up. My bad. All right. Does anyone else have anything to say about Extermination before we move on to some more X-Men essential reads? All right, we're moving on. Lance, what do you think is an essential X-Men read?
I would say that, and I really only have read generally the newer stuff from the last 20 years, but I wouldn't consider a lot of it to be essential. A lot of it was very hit and miss and patchy. But out of a pure X-Men title, my favorite is probably the middle of Grant Morrison's run to the end. I did not like the first 24 issues of it, but then the art switches to Phil Jimenez, and it gets into Mark Silvestri, and it becomes more of like a mission-based comic and is more fun to read. I didn't like all the weird stuff at the beginning of the Grant Morrison run, but at that point, we saw a lot of great Wolverine Cyclops interaction, Jean Grey and Beast. That would probably be my favorite modern or general. I haven't dove deep into the X-Men lore of the 80s yet, but that would be generally my favorite. Other than that, I keep going back to Wolverine Weapon X. I've probably read that 6 or 7 times. I think it's one of the greatest horror stories ever written in a comic. It's just like Frankenstein meets the Terminator.
You're talking about the Marvel Comics Presents series? That was fantastic.
And the art is just so visceral. Barry Windsor
Very raw.
He is just all about creating a mood. You can feel the anger dripping off of Wolverine, and then you can see later the scientists and their cold calculations and how they work on him. And then when he gets loose, they've created a monster, and the red lights are going off, and all the warnings are going off, and they're shutting the doors, and his claws are going through the doors and ripping them open. And it made a character that everybody loved, Wolverine, but it made him frightening. And it showed it's one of the few comics to ever show the true terror of Wolverine's berserker rage. I still haven't seen a lot of comics really I don't think there is a Wolverine comic that illustrates how frightening he can be if he's truly unleashed. So those would probably be my recommendations. Pele?
Mm-hmm.
I think you're up next.
I am? Okay. All right. Claremont. I mean, you have to go back to Claremont. That's as far as, well, Moira's first appearance is Uncanny X-Men number 96, I believe it is. It's a good place, I think, to start. We might as well start at 94. Pick up the trade, unless you just want to invest in the floppies, which I strongly recommend. I still think that they're undervalued. I think they're undervalued for what they are, especially in high grade. They're some of the most important comics that have ever been printed, and the legacy of them is still strong. And it's the state, it's the finest point of the art is Claremont's X-Men. I'd put them as one of the 3 greatest stories that comics have ever told.
What would be your highlight of the Claremont run? Just curious.
It's got
Days of Future Past, that era. Yeah, I love Days of Future Past. The Dark Phoenix saga, everything below everything before like 150, 94 to 150 is just bam, So anything in that run, like I said, get the trades, get the omnibus, or buy the floppies, and in nice condition, put them back. And I mean, they're already very expensive now, but it's not even close to what they're going to be. I mean, what we're seeing now is bargain basement pricing for what these are going to be worth in the coming years. So, Doc?
Oh, let's see. I would, what? As much as I love, the Claremont Byrne era, I'm actually a bigger fan of the post Fall of the Mutants.
Okay.
Pretty much from about issue 200 through 300.
Yeah.
Because you had the Outback era, you had the team as outlaws, when they were essentially dead, you had them, with sitting there with essentially a reboot machine in their pocket, but not using it. with the Siege Perilous.
Yeah. That's a good point.
And yeah, they had this, at any point in time, they could have given up. They could have adjusted. They could have been, returned back to, their proper place in the world. But they refused until they didn't have a choice. They were dead if they didn't. And I loved it. Plus you get the beginnings of Psylocke, Asian Psylocke as the Lady Mandarin. I loved that era. Plus the fact that you had some amazing artists. You had Silvestri, you had Rick Leonardi, you had Jim Lee, you had the end of Paul Smith. You had everybody. You had some great artists, and you had some early John Romita Jr.
Did Peter David do some of them?
No, Peter David.
Or story.
Peter David doesn't. No, because
I thought he wrote.
It was all Claremont.
I thought he wrote part of. I think he wrote some of the subplot on some of it. He's credited with.
I don't recall him ever getting any credit.
Okay, I was thinking during the Jim Lee era, he wrote some of the subplot on.
Maybe because no, I think it was Byrne, because Byrne came back.
Okay,
and that was after Claremont quit.
Okay,
and Byrne came back, and then Lobdell.
Okay,
because Peter David was only doing the stuff over on X Factor at that point.
X Factor, that's right. That's right.
He went over and did X Factor. And that was when, post mutant Muir Island saga.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, you had some. Now, the only thing that was disappointing in that era is you never got the real culmination of that Claremont had been building up to for so long with the Shadow King.
Yeah, it all kind of dribbled out. It didn't really.
Yeah.
Well, that was disappointing.
He quit the book, and then he was taking some time off to prepare for X-Men 1, and Editorial came in and literally wrote the end of his 200 issue long Muir Island saga without him there.
Yeah,
it was one of the reasons. It was one of the reasons why he quit after 3 issues of Adjectiveless.
Right.
But yeah, I'd have to say, but my essential would be Fall of the Mutants, Inferno. I love those two. Fall of the Mutants, when the X-Men die, when they actually, that was the most quintessentially X-Men, literally dying and sacrificing themselves for humanity to save the Earth. And then Roma, basically gives them a get out of jail free card. And they're like, oh, well, because they were prepared to all go out. This was no that was the most quintessentially X-Men that I remember. And I love Fall of the Mutants for that reason. So yeah, if you have a chance, go pick up Fall of the Mutants. It was amazing.
Awesome. So I want to say thank you very much to Real Comic Stacks. He had to head out. He's got to deal with his family. So if you haven't subbed to his channel, if you aren't watching his content, he has amazing Marvel content. He has really great MCU content. He's basically my go-to source when I want to watch Marvel and MCU videos on YouTube. So if that's what you're interested in, definitely go check out Stacks. And Doc, I wanted to hear your thoughts on Cell Dogs. He's saying Ultimate Uncanny X-Men 186 and 198, Life, Death, and then Uncanny X-Force by Remender. What are your thoughts on that?
Ooh, both excellent. Life, Death was there was supposed to be a Life Death 3, and apparently Barry Windsor Smith did release it as Ad Astra in Africa. But I love Life Death. It's two of the best single issue kind of stories between Forge and Storm.
Yeah.
And they're amazing. I highly recommend it. If you've never watched or if you've never read them, go do it, because they're exceptional. And now I have not had a chance to read Ad Astra in Africa, but Uncanny X-Force was after Morrison left X-Men. I was never a huge fan of Joss Whedon's X-Men. I know everybody else is, the only thing good about it, in my opinion, was John Cassaday. Everything else, I didn't really like the story. I thought it was dumb. I thought it was derivative. I thought it was, I didn't think it was very good.
I could only get a few issues into it. I thought the writing was so awful that I just had a hard time. It was just Wolverine.
Wait, I lost you there for a second, brother.
I don't know. It sounds like Lance doesn't like strong female characters. Say about that. All right,
so
Doc, we got another.
But Uncanny X-Force was the first time that X-Men started feeling like X-Men again. And when Remender got jumped over to Uncanny Avengers, I was kind of disappointed. But then he kept up a lot of the plots that he was doing in Uncanny X-Force. But then he just then Axis happened, and then he pretty much just left and quit, and none of it ever got really handled.
All right, so what are your thoughts on Tevia's all-new Wolverine and X-Force by Cullen Bunn?
Tevia has very poor taste.
What?
It's very weird. I'll say that.
He likes X-Men Red. I very much question his taste. No, all-new Wolverine was terrible. Gabby needs thrown into the sun.
Yes.
And we need to find out that the Lara that came out of Arcade's murder world in Avengers Arena was not really Lara, and the real Lara is still in there because somehow Lara became a 25-year-old wine mom in All New Wolverine. So no, it's terrible too, and it ruined Lara.
It did. It's really a shame too, because she had such incredible potential, and they turned her into a soccer mom.
Yeah, I mean, I love you, Tevia, but come on, dude, you got some really bad taste sometimes, man.
Tevia has it as an eclectic choice of comics, man. She likes a lot of comics.
I mean, more power to you, dude. I love the fact that you get enjoyment out of this. I just think I think All New Wolverine broke Lara. It broke her permanently. The only way to undo it is to find out that the Lara we've had ever since Avengers Arena isn't really Lara.
It's a doppelganger.
Yeah, that it's a doppelganger. And otherwise we have to throw her into the sun too.
All right, let's see if we can get some redemption for Tevia. Here we go. Chuck Austin's X-Men sucked. Is that true, Doc?
Correct.
There you go. See, Tevia's got some good taste. He knew Chuck Austin's X-Men sucked.
Yeah, Chuck Austin sucks.
I did want to comment briefly. I think I cut out on the Joss Whedon X-Men. It has to be one of the most overrated runs of a comic. It is. It just, I tried to read it, and the writing is awful, and the art is like so sterile. It's what I would call the perfect Warren Ellis art, which is basically the characters have no emotion. The backgrounds are very sterile. They all look pretty much like there's nothing there. There's just a bunch of steel everywhere. It's just like, and it's full of just cheesy one-liners. I don't understand where the love comes from with this comic.
Because it's Joss Whedon.
Well,
That
so
might be my hang-up.
if it wasn't Joss Whedon, people would hate it.
Yeah, pretty much, yeah. I think so.
Yeah.
I liked like there were somewhere in the middle, like around issue 4 to 8, 4 to 9. It kind of turned a corner, and I was like, "Oh, hey, no."
Mm-hmm.
So it's
spun out and went into a ditch.
it's like Buffy, you know. I loved seasons 3 through 5, and then it was like, oh. The rest of the time I was like, oh, okay.
Man, we've got a lot of love in this. Joss Whedon sucks at writing comics. I'll tell you that. Everyone's agreeing with that point. Lamont Hall saying Joss Whedon destroyed modern comics.
He's not wrong.
He destroyed my childhood and he killed my dog.
Oh, we got another person claiming they hate Joss Whedon. That's in all caps, so he's basically screaming it. But all right, so we done the essential X-Men reads. Let's get on to the keys. I know. Pele has been wanting to talk about this. Pele, there is a huge renewed interest in X-Men. I mean, I'm sure you see it in your shop. People are pulling them off the shelves, right?
Oh no, they don't. I don't let them touch them unless they're going to buy.
Well, yeah, people are coming in and buying X-Men, right?
But yeah. There's nothing hotter right now except maybe McFarlane Spider-Man. You know, McFarlane ASM is always the king, but Uncanny is, you know, is dethroned it lately. I can't keep any of the Claremont X-Men in the lower numbers in stock, even at, you know, 30, 40, 50% over guide. You know, it's just, there's the renewed interest right now. I've never seen anything quite like it. And fortunately, it's brought a lot of people in to sell their comics, so I can actually have some available. But, you know, it's just turnover city right now. And that's what I like it. When comics churn, that's when stores make money. You know, you don't make money when comics don't churn. You know, there's got to be enough attraction there for people to want to come in and buy them. And there's got to be enough incentive financially for people to come in and sell them. So, you know, right now, I think that the early Claremonts, like I said before, are extremely good investments. If you can get close to book value on those, you know, comicspriceguide.com, raw values. If you can get close to that, then do it. You know, we're talking, you know, it's like, oh yeah, the big keys, everything up to, I would say, I'm looking right now, everything up to 144, 145. Yeah, right before everything up to like 147. You know, is gold. And first appearance Kitty Pryde, you know, you've got 40 and 41, you know, 41 and 42 Days of Future Past. It's crazy. Dark Phoenix Saga, they've been hot for so many years now, it's ridiculous. But
Haley, are there any of the House of X and Powers of 10 comics, like if people have them, that you would just say, do not let anyone get their hands on this, because they're good investments and they're going to get even hotter?
All of them. I think that Hawks and Pox 1, each one of those is going to be good. And if you have the connecting variants, those are going to be really good to hang on to. The Brooks variant right now, we sell them for $50 a pair when I can get them. I think last set I paid $38 and ended up selling it for $55. So, you know, it's pretty intense right now. House of X, Powers of X number 5, 4 1, 4, and 5 right now, I think, are probably the hottest. Then 2, then 2 and 3. 6, it's just, the 2 new right now for me to gauge what they're going to be like as back issues. But the whole both series are going to be just hot back issues for the next several years going forward. You've got 140,000 print runs on 3, 4, 5, and 6. Number 1 had a print run of 115. Then of course the reprints and whatnot. And there's a lot of reprint equity in all of them. Mm-hmm. But that's in the grand scheme of things, when you're talking about potential for the MCU, for this to be a big MCU storyline, possibly. I'm already hearing rumors about that, of Hickman being brought in for an MCU adaptation for this as like a trilogy of X-Men films. Wow, this would, there's the potential for these 12 issues is it's there. Get the main covers. Don't worry about the variants or anything like that. Main covers are going to be what people are going to be drawn to, unless it's the connecting covers. That's the one caveat there. Unless it's the connecting covers, but get them, put them in. Just put them nice. Put them in a bag, board. Put them in a dry, safe place, and after you get through enjoying them, and many years from now, this, I got to remind people, this is not the 90s. This is not the time when comics were printed into oblivion. We're seeing an era right now where comics have very low print runs in comparison to where they've always been before. So 100,000, 150,000 issues is not large. Not when you have the potential for MCU and you have the resurgence right now of the X-Men the way it is, and how many other new fans are going to be picked up over the next several years. So those books are going to have to be, that's all there are. If you want first prints, that's all it's going to be available. And, they're going to command some money later on down the road. And, I think that probably, I'm going to be selling them as 12 issue sets. I wouldn't be surprised. I've already got several sets waiting. I've not put them out yet, but I got several sets waiting, and I'm going to be asking right off the bat. I'm going to be asking $100 for a first print 12 issue set. Mm-hmm. And I'll get it too, within the next 4 to 5 months. And then I would be surprised, $120, $150, $200, as they steadily climb, because like I said, there's not that many of them in the wild, considering how big this, how big this can be, depending on what happens next in other forms of media. So, get a nice set, put it away,
So, Doc, are there any hot X-Men keys you've been looking at that you think you need to get your hands on right now before they get a little too hot with all the resurgent interest in the characters?
Huh.
Oh, I want to include one more real quick. First appearance of Alpha Flight. Alpha Flight's going to have a influence in the future. They're already talking about an Alpha Flight film. So X-Men 120, 121, Uncanny X-Men 120 and 121.
No,
those are going to be big. Yep, 106 first weapon.
Yeah, 106 is Alpha Flight.
No, 120, 121 is the first Alpha Flight weapon. What do they call that? Project X was 106.
Are we having a nerd off?
Alpha Flight's 120, 121.
Okay.
I remember Alpha Flight showing up having one of my favorite comic covers of all time, where basically the leader is like blowing the doors off of Wolverine. It looks like everyone's going to die. Correct?
106's first evil Professor X entity. Then you had.
Oh, yeah, that was the Super Guardians. Never mind. It's the Imperial Guard.
Yeah. But yeah,
Sorry,
120,
my mistake.
120's cameo, 121's first full appearance. They go for near mint. They go for about $200 now. So each. So
I got mine cheap.
yeah, definitely. If you first appearance Weapon Alpha is 109. The first, that's the Guardian, the first one of the Guardian suit.
Okay.
So that's also a great one to get.
I mean,
oh, go ahead. Sorry, I interrupted you. Go ahead.
I'm gonna go with some stuff that's a little later, that's a little more reasonably priced. I go with 221, which is first Sinister.
Yep.
You can probably still get a decent looking copy for about $40. Then depending on where you're going.
It definitely will get out on eBay for that, but
no,
maybe
not
maybe
eBay.
maybe an LCS.
Yeah, in a local shop, you'll do all right. I still think 190, or was it 190? Yeah, I think that was the first, or was it? Oh, well, the first Nimrod. Oh, 194. Sorry. Yeah, 194. First Nimrod. 196. First Rachel Summers. I would go with 205 because it's got a rather classic, kind of an amazingly classic cover. And plus it's another issue done by Claremont and Barry Windsor Smith.
164, first appearance of Binary. That kind of ties in Carol Danvers with the whole, Captain Marvel thing. If the MCU goes that route and they turn her into Binary later on, and then they make Monica Rambeau the real Captain Marvel, like she should be, and then switch Carol Danvers over to being Binary.
248, which is the first Jim Lee art on X-Men.
Oh yeah, beautiful.
It's a gorgeous cover. Now, normally I would say 256 because it's the first Psylocke as Lady Mandarin after she comes through the Siege Perilous and ends up in her Asian body. But I don't think that the MCU is going to touch that. I mean, they're intentionally trying to get away from and distance themselves from that era because, I don't know, cultural appropriation or some nonsense. But it's really, really cool. You know what? Actually, I would go with, and while it's not an X-Men key, it is still an X-Men related key. Avengers Annual 10, because it's got the first Rogue.
Mm-hmm.
Now, if you want to go into more obscure characters in the earlier run, I would You know the one that I'd really like to see, the one that I think you'd actually do pretty well with? X-Men 49. Uncanny 49. It's the first Polaris. And I sort of expect that they may skip, because I know there's talk about, doing a black Magneto and Xavier, and I honestly, I think that'll blow up in their face. So, and I think even they realize it. So they may end up skipping Xavier and Magneto, and going directly with Polaris as kind of the heir to Xavier, or the heir to Magneto.
Yep.
They may go that
they
route.
just announced that they're gonna make Black Magneto and Black Xavier. Like that solves anything for anybody. Like, what does that have to do with anything?
My representation.
I'm sorry.
Well,
my representation, man.
There's already plenty of representation within the X-Men group.
We know.
Well,
you don't say anything, yeah.
It's just, but it's so insulting to a black audience to say, "Here you go. Now Xavier's black. Now Magneto's black." I think it's insulting. And not to mention, obviously, ruining the origin of Eric Leshner at that point. Have no idea what universe he comes from now. It's nobody wants to have pastel painted over characters to let them know that they're being represented in any form. Obviously, just want new characters and run them up the flagpole, see if anyone salutes it. Nobody wants to see Black Superman or Filipino Wonder Woman. It's okay to have those characters. I don't understand what they're trying to pull here. It's just very strange to me.
It's just lowest common denominator pandering, and they think they can earn themselves some woke points. So I don't know what can they cash it in for like I don't know, that that Voltron ring from Deadpool.
Very strange to
I don't
take
know.
one minority that is persecuted like the Jews and trade them out. I don't understand how that's woke. That would be the opposite of woke, in my opinion.
Well, the Jews don't get that protection. Jews don't get that protection.
Doc, who's the guy that has his body parts floating all over him?
Wait, are you talking about Hellion?
No, the mutant he's like a sack of nothing. He's just got body parts going on over him.
I'm blanking on
the dude that you hate so much. Never mind, you ruined the joke. Where can we get our first appearance of Dupe?
Dupe. Oh, okay. You can do Dupe in X-Force. I think it's 116.
Something like that, yeah.
Yeah, it's either 114 or 116. It's X-Men or X-Force Volume 1. It was when they switched it over to, it's issue 116, which is when they change 115, the original team basically dies. And then 116, it became the Peter Milligan and Mike Allred, and it kind of looked like Madman, but with X-Men. Are you talking about Glob Herman?
I want Dupe and I want Glob. Where can I find my first appearance of Glob?
Glob would be New X-Men 114, I think. I think he made an appearance in that first issue under Morrison. I'll have to pull that out.
That would have been in a courtyard like a couple of times.
Yeah.
Saw him, right?
Yeah, you saw him like just hanging out, and then they're like, okay, well, let's do something with him, because that was the way that it was with like Quentin Quire. He just looked like Peter Parker, like teenage Peter Parker walking through the X-Men quad, and then all of a sudden, and the cuckoos started making fun of him. Because he was Xavier's kind of pet like star pupil, and they were making fun of the fact that he had a see-through brain.
Mm-hmm.
He couldn't be read.
115, new X-Men 115, first appearance of Negasonic Age Warhead.
Yeah,
I think that one's undervalued. It's like you can get it for like $10, $10-12 in most shops.
You could probably find it in most just regular back issue bins.
I doubt it, not now. But you probably could a couple years ago. But you probably pay $10-12 for it, and in one nice near mint condition, I would do that. Put it up. That's a good issue to get. It's got a great cover too, Wolverine on it. So.
Regarding Dupe, though, and Ecstatic's characters, I'd just like to mention that the excellent one-shot that came out that was supposed to launch a whole series did not do well. And they are now saying that's not going to be an ongoing when it relaunches in 2020. It's likely to be a mini-series. So that would not make anything
giant-sized Ecstatics
related to be... Yeah, is that what it was called?
Yeah, giant-sized Ecstatics.
And it was supposed to launch a series called Excellent. But I was reading that it's likely to be a mini, if it even comes to fruition at this point.
Yeah, if that, yeah.
It's looking like it could be DOA.
All right, guys, we're going to move on from the hot X-Men keys. Thank you so much to Pele, Lance, and Doc for hitting those up. Lots of great suggestions. But now it's time to fix Marvel Comics. Marvel is in a great place. They have a tentpole in X-Men. Now they need to raise up some of their other titles. And first things first, Spider-Man's in a pretty decent place. I think Pele would agree with that. But he can definitely be better. He needs to be elevated a little bit more. Pele, how do you think we can fix Spider-Man? Is it a creative direction? Does it need a new creative team for Amazing
Spider-Man? I think that it needs to take on a more serious tone. Ewing needs. I think they're talking about you bringing Ewing in on it. Aren't they talking about bringing Ewing in on?
I don't know. He's doing Guardians of the Galaxy. I
thought they were leaving. But yeah, they've got to make some changes there. The ASM is more like what Friendly Neighborhood Spider-Man should be like.
Mm-hmm.
You know, and Friendly Neighborhood Spider-Man is like no Spider-Man should be like. So
it's awful.
It's awful. It's really, really terrible.
Ignore that one.
So, it's I don't know what to say. I really don't.
So my idea is you put Donny Cates on Amazing Spider-Man with Ryan Stegman and Ryan Otley as the other artist. What do you think about that?
I think it would be great. But isn't his plate already kind of overfull right now?
He's doing Thor. He's doing a little Venom action. He doesn't need to be on Venom.
Hey, I like Kate's on Venom.
Well, it's a Spider-Man related character. He can handle 3 comics, can he?
I thought he was going to be doing Thor and Guardians.
Now Guardians is
leaving Guardians.
That's right, Ewing. So
I think Kate still has one more book.
I thought he was going to be on.
I think he does have a third book.
Yeah, he does.
I'm just blanking on what it is.
Yeah, that's
all right. Who would you guys put on it if Cates isn't available to elevate Spider-Man to the next level?
Grant Morrison.
Grant Morrison. We got Chris who? Chris Gage?
Yeah, Christos Gage.
It's a nice choice. I like Christos Gage. He did an amazing Ninja K. That was excellent.
he already has history with doing Spider-Man.
Mhm.
He comes out of doing crime television. It's the perfect fit for him. Him and his wife were the two series writers during the first season of Daredevil. They were, Chris Gage is the perfect guy, unless you're going to go and bring in like somebody like Dan Jurgens, or Paul Jenkins.
I'm assuming
then
Jurgens is exclusive to DC.
I'm
Just
betting
move
he probably is.
Just move Zdarsky over to Amazing.
I would love that because his Spectacular Spider-Man was an excellent series, but
Yeah.
Zdarsky doesn't seem to be able to sell comics very well.
He doesn't. He can't. But if you put somebody like Paul Jenkins or Chris Gage on there, they're not names, but they can sell on decent with just consistency.
Oh, I can't stand Paul Jenkins.
Oh,
His writing is just so laborsome to read. It just
is it Bendis-like?
No, it's just very dull. It's everything is just very drawn out and very. You can tell he's thinking,
Bendis like.
but it's just not. It just doesn't have a punch ever. It's just kind of. I mean, I know people like Sentry. Never read Sentry, so maybe that's good. But I've read his Hellblazer. I've read stuff he's done, and I've not enjoyed it.
All right, so who would you put on Spider-Man to elevate the series if it's not Nick Spencer?
I'm just gonna stay out of this one because I wouldn't read it anyway.
You don't like Spider-Man?
I've never bought it monthly. I only like Todd McFarlane. That was about it.
Well, what if they put Todd McFarlane on it?
But
That would be something.
I would buy it then. Yeah.
That'd be the one to go.
Something. Boy, they'd have. Could you imagine how big that check would have to be for them to get McFarlane on Spider-Man?
I'll never
I mean,
do
that check. It would the number of zeros would be just amazing.
But yeah,
He'll never do it.
probably realistically not available. But I do believe that a Todd McFarlane-led Spider-Man would eclipse X-Men pretty hard. As far as
The same
Sales,
possible.
yeah.
yeah.
The funny thing about Todd is that because he's been away from Marvel, he created in a lot of Marvel fanboys some type of resentment that I've seen, and I don't understand it personally, but I've heard for years people, oh, it's just Todd McFarlane, oh, it's this, it's that, and they try to belittle what he did for the title. I really don't think Spider-Man would be Spider-Man without Todd McFarlane.
Of course it wouldn't.
Well,
Yeah, of
yeah.
course it wouldn't. He revived it.
Basically proved that you could have two top-selling Spider-Man books concurrently, correct?
Yes, with adjectiveless and amazing at the same time. Yeah.
Mm.
Yeah, that was the heyday right there. I mean, that's the nerds were coming in, 4 times a month, to buy Spider-Man. It's the only time I've seen something like that was recently. People coming in every week to pick up their X-Men books, for Powers of X and House of X. So,
Do you think Spider-Man has the right artist right now with Ryan Otley and then Pat Gleason coming over from DC Comics?
I think it's solid. I think it's definitely good enough. It's definitely enough to carry the series.
Mm-hmm.
I think that it's not Bagley, but it is what it is, and I think it's good enough.
So you would keep Otley and Gleason as the two guys that are pumping out the
They seem to be able to handle the load. They seem to be able to handle it well enough to where it's not falling apart, and that's what's important. Bi-weekly, the way they have it set up, they've got a system, and the system seems to work pretty well, and you see real moments of brilliance in their work. I don't think it's overall just jaw-droppingly amazing, but it's really, really good. It's really, really stable, and there are moments of brilliance enough to keep you engaged. while the story, while you follow the kind of herpy derpy, syrupy story going on. So it's good enough. It's just I think Spencer's time is done.
We all agree that it would sell better without Spencer as the writer.
Yeah.
When I might be out of the loop here, but when did I remember during the Craven's Hunt revival, people were excited about Spencer. Things gone pretty poorly since then.
Well, that storyline was really good. But there's been a couple of things that happened after. I think just Nick Spencer's name is tainted with the Hail Hydra.
He's getting a little too political now. He's getting
Spider-Man?
the whole. Yeah, I just get the feeling that one day we're going to pop open a copy of ASM and find he's climbing out of bed with some dude. And, it's just, I just don't. There's certain, I guess you could say, director flubs. There's, I know that the artists probably take cues of how they want, the artists take cues from the writer sometimes, and there's been a few moments that you're looking at it and you're thinking that's very effeminate, and I get the feeling that he's being pushed in a certain direction, and I want to get him out of there before Peter Parker does climb out of bed with some guy. So
yeah, if he hasn't been in bed with another man for the first 1,000 issues, I highly doubt now's the time.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, you never know.
So what's the final verdict on
the
the next writer for Amazing Spider-Man? Do we have anybody? Is it Todd McFarlane?
No, I think that I'm gonna make my pitch for Grant Morrison, because I think that a really good cerebral arc right now would be great. Something with twists and turns and something that kind of draws people in again, as far as the meaty storytelling. And I'd like to see that for about 20 or 25 issues.
Doc, are you with Grant Morrison Spider-Man? Would that elevate sales?
Honestly, I mean, it would elevate sales, but I just don't think he's really the guy to do it.
Mm-hmm.
I just don't think so. I don't think that I couldn't see Grant doing anything interesting with Spider-Man that J. Michael Straczynski didn't already try to do. Because see, the whole thing is Spider-Man he's just a guy that stops crime. He doesn't need the Grant Morrison treatment. That's the point I'm making. Mm-hmm. He really doesn't.
I'm not saying keeping him that way. I'm just saying it would be interesting as a change of pace to see something like that.
It would certainly be interesting. It's just, again, it comes back to the question of, is it really necessary? I think somebody that's just going to do a more basic kind of simple, cops and robbers crime comic would do a lot better.
But that's what we've had. I mean, basically.
So we got one person saying Ben Percy, but we're just going to keep him in the X-Men universe. We're assuming that he's going to be doing X-Force Wolverine. And X-Men doesn't really need any fixing right now.
I'd stick with my original suggestions of Chris Gage and Paul Jenkins.
All right. I like
of guys that aren't there.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, also, I would say they need a new Spectacular Spider-Man as well. I would probably just put Zdarsky back on that, but then I would give him Humberto Ramos as the artist, since he did a pretty good job on Amazing Spider-Man. Make it a monthly book. Then you have two pretty good. You have one excellent Amazing Spider-Man that would be your flagship. You have a spectacular Spider-Man that's going to have probably even better stories, but maybe a little decrease in art. I think that Spider-Man would be in a great place. What do you guys think about that?
I think that just have Zdarsky just say, okay, the only book you're going to be writing, the only thing you're going to be doing for the next 12 to 24 months or whatever, is going to be Spectacular Spider-Man. You're going to be doing the art, stories, everything. Go.
Oh, yeah, he'd be good on the art. But you have to get him off of Sex Criminals or whatever that stupid book he writes.
That's what I'm saying. Just pay him enough to where this is what you're going to be doing for the next 12 months, 24 months, and we're going to pay you handsomely to do it, and go. And I think that would be fantastic.
I think that the Sex Criminals has finally died a very well-deserved death. I don't think that's coming back.
Well, that's good to know. Time. All right, so one quick hit. Doc, how would you fix Miles Morales?
I'd put him back in the Ultimate Universe.
Well, that would definitely help.
I would eliminate. See, how I would fix most things is by eliminating redundancies.
I'm with you on that.
We don't need 35 Spider people. We don't need a dozen Hulks. We don't need 15 Wolverines. We bring back the uniqueness of the individual characters. And if you want a Miles, that's spectacular, but throw him in another universe.
Mm-hmm.
Same with Gwen. Spider, whatever, throw her in her own universe. But
put Miles and Gwen in the Ultimate Universe and leave them there.
Yeah, that's fine. I mean, but honestly, I don't see the purpose of running. I would do. Here's what I do. I'd stick a lot of your redundant characters into an Ultimate Universe title, a single Ultimate Universe title that basically tells the story of that entire universe. If it becomes strong enough to deserve to spin off, because I don't see the point in running two universal lines, especially when they're very similar. I would stick them all the redundant characters in there. And any of the extras that you have beyond 1 or 2, throw them into the sun.
I have another solution.
My solution to everything.
Just bring back the Scourge and have him kill all the redundant characters.
I'd be fine with that too.
So just have Carnage, the whole Carnage storyline, just have a big spider massacre.
Sounds good to me.
That would sell.
See, the problem is well, hold on real quick to address that.
Mm-hmm.
Just killing them, even in a event or whatever, isn't going to do the trick, because people are going to bitch to have them come back.
People like those characters.
People do. There's going to be a handful of people that like them. So what you do is you just throw them into their own little universe.
Mm-hmm.
Let them exist there. And if they can't support it sales-wise in one title, eliminate it. Then just say, look, hey, sorry, these just characters aren't interesting enough to keep going, and we're not doing redundancies in our own universe. There. At least you have an answer. But as long as you just keep killing them in this universe, there will be clamoring to bring them back every time.
Mm-hmm.
So don't do that. Just stick them in their own universe, and then if they can't support sales wise, then it gets canceled. And then you could bring back that universe whenever you want, instead of just shuffling these characters that don't get supported around to other books and adding dozens and dozens of redundancies in the same character. Because look, there's a direct correlation between how many essentially bad photocopies of Spider-Man, Wolverine, and the Hulk there are, and how poorly the sales are on them, on the main title.
We're talking about the tent poles that are going to lift other comics up, And I think we've addressed Spider-Man. Let's get to our last set of topics. Fixing the Avengers, which would also include Iron Man, Captain America, Thor, and Black Panther. I think Thor is fixed for now that we have Kate's on there. I think we could assume that title is going to sell well, and it's going to have rejuvenated interest in it. But Avengers is the really big one. That's the one that needs to really hit. Would you agree with me on that one, guys?
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. So my idea, Rick Remender on Avengers. What do you guys think? Oh, don't jump at once.
He's already done. See, the problem with doing Remender is it's a question of, is he coming in with a blank slate or not? If he's coming in, he's probably going to want to continue some of the stuff that he was already doing on Avengers, in which case it gets into him playing in the X-Men sandbox again.
Right.
Well, I'm assuming there's going to be an Avengers versus X-Men book, and that he's going to have to work with Hickman to execute it.
Honestly, I don't see the point of another AVX anytime soon.
It won't be. Something like that won't be for at least 2021. I'd say 2020, 2021, late 2020. It's, there's going to be a lot of stuff that's going to have to go down before they really start butting heads again. At least out in the open, full on, full all out type war situation. But,
or do you guys think that Jason Aaron's got the right track and that Avengers doesn't need fixing?
Oh, it needs something because it's it's a pretty sad state right now.
It needs to go.
Mm-hmm.
It does. It needs to go. And honestly, somebody like Peter David to take over. You can get it. It doesn't need to be a big name writer. First of all, they need to bring the stakes of Avengers down, because everything Avengers has been touching for the last 5 years or so has been nothing but world-ending level stuff.
Mm-hmm.
And that's not. It's not sustainable.
So you wouldn't like my alternative idea would be, Scott Snyder is not DC exclusive anymore. Bring Scott Snyder on the Avengers, but if he was on the Avengers,
that would sell like hotcakes.
Yeah,
Scott Snyder Avengers would sell really well.
The Sun in the first issue.
Yes, exactly.
I think Snyder would be great on Iron Man, but Avengers is just another big team book that, if it depends, is he going to write it, or is he going to bring his buddy Tinian Four over to write half of it?
Well, Tinian's on Batman. I'm assuming he's not going anywhere.
But I know that's the Justice League setup, and Justice League's doing okay, but it's not a top 5 comic. It's not even in top 10 sometimes. The year
for ongoing, because it's definitely a DC top 4 book.
Is it still?
Right for DC Comics, not for all of them, but
DC
is really hurt right now. It's Batman, Detective Comics, and I think it's Justice League. Am I right, Pele?
Yeah.
Which I think we'd all agree Justice League would probably be better off if he had a sole writing credit on. And then
I think so.
And I would then be for him on Avengers if it was sole writing credit.
We're just bringing Scott over. We're going to put on one.
But him on Iron Man would be fascinating because he is a science nerd, and Iron Man needs science nerds to write Iron Man.
It really does.
They don't need these Bendis and Slots are absolutely wrong fits for Iron Man. They are Spider-Man writers or whatever, and they don't belong with the. You have to have a subscription to Popular Mechanics to write Iron Man, in my opinion, or something. You have to be
right now. Iron Man's just dead right now. It doesn't sell. It's the critics love it, but they're comic book critics. So what do they know?
They're chills.
Exactly, and it hits the right tonal buttons to make social justice crowd excited, wet their pants, but it doesn't trigger sales, and it's really just nauseating storytelling. Very poor.
What do you guys think about Black Cat's idea of Christopher Priest on Avengers? He did actually a pretty
I
damn
love
good
that.
Justice League before they rebooted it.
I could get on board with that.
I would
Yeah.
like it.
Oh, I would love it. Priest would be a great Avengers writer.
Because he's a little more basic, down to earth writer.
Absolutely.
think
His
that he would
Justice
be-
League was
I think that he would do really well with basic, down to earth Avengers stories that
Like-
aren't cataclysmic.
there's like a level of humanity in the Justice League when he was writing it that was refreshing. Because as soon as Snyder took over, and I think he's a great writer, but everything was just the biggest idea, the biggest everything ever. And I was like, man, I really like that one where the Justice League accidentally landed in Africa and people were like, they were trying to figure out if they should help all the people there or not. You know, it seemed like more realistic Justice League problems. So I think Chris Priest on Avengers would be perfect. Wish I
I mean,
thought-
if it wasn't for the fact that he's see, like, there's a lot of writers that I consider I would go off the board with guys that aren't currently hired by a lot of these companies.
Mhm.
That's what I do.
Well, I said Remender. You
Yeah.
crapped all over me.
No, I just don't think that Remender. I think he would do great for Thor, actually.
From what
Think-
I've read of Remender's work, I think that he needs an editor to rein him in because some of his storylines start to balloon out into uninteresting type of side territory and tangents. And if he had a shorter leash, I think he'd be a better writer on a mainstream title.
Lamont Hall's talking about Ta-Nehisi Coates on Avengers. I don't know if he could do an ensemble book.
I don't know if he can
He
do
could
any
do a
book.
comic book.
Yeah.
Actually, that's not a lot. Like his Black Panther isn't actually that bad.
Yeah, his Black Panther was fantastic.
Yeah,
but,
he's actually written some good stuff.
I'm
just
just
that-
I've just not seen him where he could write an ensemble book and keep it
I
focused.
think you're onto something with Peter David. I mean, he did X Factor for 20
Oh, he was
years.
joking.
No, I wasn't. Okay. I was going to say I wasn't joking about Peter David.
No. I was talking about
He also said Kelly Sue DeConnick for Avengers.
no. Ugh.
He's funny.
Yeah, I would. Trying to think who right now isn't getting work that would
Well, I
do-
know. Do you like Matt Kent? Because that dude is a great writer, and for
He is
some
a
reason,
great writer.
get any work at Marvel or DC.
I would put him on Wolverine. I'm already a non-starter with Percy.
He'll never be at Marvel again because he's a Trump supporter.
who
Does that mess up my Captain America fix? Because I don't know if he's a Trump supporter, but I would switch out Coates and put in Howard Chaykin as writer.
But yeah, so I was going to go with Kent or Brian Hill for Cap.
Brian Hill
I
on
was-
Cap would be great.
I was going to go with Frank Thierry on.
Ooh,
on
that'd be
Cap.
good.
Mm,
I at least want somebody who's old to write Cap. I'm sick of the younger people not understanding what Captain America stands for. They have to be whoever they are over 50 years old, in my opinion.
Claremont for Cap. Let's do it, baby.
I'd read it.
That would. Who's never touched Cap that I can recall that would be interesting? Larry Hama.
Ooh,
Yeah.
That would be
That'd be
pretty
great.
good.
For all the years he did G.I. Joe, but he never did Cap. That one might be interesting. Because similar themes, obviously no, Cobra or anything, but he has Hydra.
Mhm.
Yeah.
He has Shield to work with. He would actually be able to adapt it pretty interestingly.
Oh, and they would probably be action-based stories.
Yeah, I was about to say it'd be very, very action based. It would be very, it would feel like that type. It'd have that sort of gritty 70s type of Cap vibe that back in that time.
What do you guys think about Tom King? Mako saying Tom King on Cap. He's ex-CIA. He's in his 50s. Perfect.
I don't think he's done with his midlife crisis.
Captain America is not a character that would even support the existence of the CIA. So no.
That was a joke. We do have a good one from Dominic. He's saying William Meisner Loebs definitely leads work. It could be another potential writer for Avengers and another Marvel title. Where do you guys think he would fit in this group?
Bill Meisner Loebs. He'd be another guy that I could consider on Cap. I wouldn't necessarily put him on Iron Man or Thor though, or Black Panther.
Oh, Cap, Doug Ernst.
Oh, actually, Doug Ernst.
We haven't read his first comic book yet.
Yeah, but I haven't either. So as much as I love Doug, I'm gonna make him prove it to me.
I would love to see Doug on that. I would buy that comic book. We're trying to elevate the sales for you, Pele.
It would sell through the roof. It would sell through the roof. Cap with Doug Ernst, it would sell through the roof.
You know what actually might be interesting? Warren Ellis on Avengers. He did Secret Avengers for a little bit, and it was good.
Yeah, he's good for those kind of spy type of plot, you know.
But he also did a lot of that, you know, international politics stuff when he was on Stormwatch before it turned into the Authority. And he could kind of, if he could kind of recapture some of what he did there, hell, he could bring Ron Garney back.
Yeah.
We just had that in the comments. Dane Barrett saying Larry Hama on Cap, on fire with the return of Ron Garney on art. I would buy the hell out of that.
I could go with that.
It's a shame Ron Garney isn't on a regular series. That dude's art is amazing. His Savage Sword of Conan was so good.
No,
amazing how much.
No, Ron Garney did not retire. He's still active. He's young.
Yeah, he's doing a lot of cover art right now. I don't know why he's not on a.
If you pick up a issue that Ron Garney drew in 15, 20 years ago and look at his Savage Sword of Conan stuff, it's absolutely amazing to see how far he's come. I'm just blown away. I had an old issue and I looked at it and said, "This same guy?"
You know, I was just thinking for Iron Man, a great choice on that may be Joe Casey.
Oh, I love Joe Casey.
He understands tech. He understands, you know, science. He's good on big concept. I think he'd be good. And he keeps action going. Especially with if you read his Wildcats Volume 2 and version 3.0, he understands actually using Stark tech as its own character. Like Stark Industries could be almost its own character within that.
So my choice was actually somebody you said earlier, Doc. I wanted Christos Gage on Iron Man with Clayton Crane as the artist. I think it would be amazing.
Who would you bring in on here's one. Who would you bring in on Conan?
For Conan? Well, Roy Thomas just came back, right?
Just for a few issues.
That would be nice. So actually, I thought Jerry Duggan's Conan was amazing. I don't know why he's not on a regular Conan book, to be honest. Like his Conan's the best part of Savage Avengers.
I would say though the main Conan title, which already is in need of a new writer. I think you got to go, because it's already cemented itself as kind of the a little bit goofier, funnier Conan than normal.
Yeah.
Well, if we're going to go that direction, I say let's give Garth Ennis a call.
I've got an idea.
I've got an idea. Conan.
Dave Sim.
I'm not
kidding. I think that if you're going to go with the little bit goofier, a little bit more comedic Conan, Dave Sim would just rock it. He would rock that book.
He's a little controversial right now, isn't he?
I don't care. Yeah, he is controversial, but I don't care. I'm talking about our wish list here. And I think it would be interesting to see it come full circle where Cerebus was kind of the spoof on Conan. If we got the spoof writer actually on the main book itself, I think that would be, because he's got some really interesting ideas. If you read some of his other series, besides, you know, some of his other work besides Cerebus, you know, he's got a almost like, oh gosh, what was the name of that series? Oh, my mind went blank. Anyway, he's got a grittier side to him that a little bit gritty, still funny, but I think he would be really, really excellent for a run of Conan. If they would actually hire him because of his politics.
As long as he could be quiet for a while he wrote it.
You know, another thing that happened that was kind of cringy, right? Like a teenage girl.
That's not been proven.
Well, he did an interview where he talked about it.
Yeah, but how old was she? 17?
He said she was 15 when they met.
I thought it was 17. Anyway, she was within the.
So if you hire him, just say that you can't talk to the press at all. Just
let's say, hey, I don't even want to get it, but I don't think he's hireable just because of that. I don't even know if it's his politics.
Can we look at maybe Matt Wagner would be maybe a good choice?
Mm-hmm.
He's got great bombastic action in his titles. The only issue is that he's been writing for characters that have run their course for the last 5 years, so people forget about him. But he could do great work on Conan, I think.
I would love to see me some Jeff Lemire on Conan.
Or Punisher. I'd always love to see Lemire on Punisher because of his Sweet Tooth series had a very Frank Castle-esque character that was very hard-nosed.
Well, I mean, Garth Ennis just returned to Punisher, right? Isn't that what everybody wanted? That's what you were talking about, Lance, in the DMs. You're like, oh my God, Garth Ennis is on Punisher.
It's going to be great. I think that it's amazing to me he's written probably 150 Punisher World comics at this point, and they're great. It's Fury Max was great, so I look forward to it.
Yeah, I think it's great that they're starting to bring some of these better talents back. And I think in 12 months, I think Marvel is going to have learned an enormous lesson from House of X, Powers of 10, that if you want to make money, you got to invest in the properties with the best creators possible. No more cutting corners and bringing in untested writers on these properties. If you want to make Spider-Man, Avengers, Captain America, any of these titles like feel big again, you have to bring in the best comic book writers. And no more of this stunt casting and stuff. You need to be bringing the best. That's why it's a lot of fun to talk about this stuff. Because, you know, how much better would these comic books be with any of these choices in there? It would all be better.
Now's the best time, too, because Image is not doing well. And I'm not seeing that any series averaging even close to 20,000 copies outside of maybe one or two titles. So we're not making... Well, yeah, but Todd doesn't need the money. But the rest of them are floundering over there. You're not making a lot of money if you're selling 15,000 copies. All their series being canceled at issue 20.
I think Die is kind of ascending. I think Ascender is one of those ones that's kind of moving up there. But you're right that once they lost The Walking Dead and then Saga's still on hiatus, they have a big black hole up the top. I'm sure you're noticing it, right, Pele?
Yeah, it's dead. It's dead.
It's not IDW dead, but
it's just slowed down. It's slowed down to the point to where, you know, it's almost time to pull the plug. So
yeah, I think I think Scott Snyder's Undiscovered Country might do well, but they better hope so, because Spawn's numbers are about to come down a lot after these milestone issues. But back to the matter at hand. Do we have anybody that we thought maybe can Captain Marvel be ascended into an important comic book?
Can it be?
Yes. What would it take? Is it a creator issue, or do they need to go back to Monica Rambeau for that to happen?
I think that if they brought back the original male Captain Marvel, it would ascend.
Marvel?
Yeah, Captain Marvel.
Mm-hmm.
And move Carol back down to Miss Marvel.
I don't know if they'll do that. Maybe.
I don't. Maybe ask Jim Starlin. He has any ideas on this. So.
Jim Starlin would be a great start, but I'm pretty sure he hates Marvel right now for the way they dicked him over on that Thanos book.
Pretty ugly. It got ugly on that one.
Yeah, basically they knew what his storyline was going to be, and they greenlit someone else to tell the exact same story. Not cool. That's definitely a Tom Brevoort special right there. Legion of Doofuses in action.
Especially since he spent 5 years doing graphic novels with Alan Davis and then ruined
his character. But, all right, so what were our thoughts on Black Panther? Is Black Panther in a good spot? Does it need a new creative change, Pele?
It doesn't sell like it did when Coates was writing.
Well, I mean, Coates is writing it, isn't it?
I thought he was. I thought he wasn't. I thought he'd gotten moved on. Well, it's bad now. Then
no, he rebooted it with the space. The space
with raw numbers right now. The whole Shuri thing is just all of the
Avengers associated books are just tanking. Iron Man, Captain America. I think Thor will probably bounce back because of Kate's and like Black Panther, Captain Marvel. They're all doing terrible.
Yeah, when his sister shot him into space and left him to die, it was just like that's when everybody just sort of threw up their hands and walked away. It felt like that's what it felt like.
Mm-hmm.
So, I don't know what they were thinking. Editorial, Editorial did what Editorial normally does with Marvel. So,
oh yeah, they're leaving doofuses for a reason. Hey,
I mean, think of it this way: you had this mega hit box office explosive movie. Black Panther is killing the record books. All this wonderful stuff going on for it. They're talking about the sequel to it. And has all this incredible buzz. And what do? He gets shot into space by his sister and killed, and left to die.
He's dead now?
No, he's not dead.
No,
they don't know on Earth that he isn't dead. But it's kind of weird because he's still like the leader of the Avengers.
Yeah,
continuity is so stupid.
And it's just and then she took over the mantle, and it's like she took over the mantle of Black Panther, and why don't you just go and get your brother back?
Mm-hmm. So what do we think about after his work on Killmonger? Would Brian Hill be the natural successor to Black Panther?
I think so. I think it would be better than where it's heading right now.
I mean, he does have Fallen Angels for X-Men, but that's only one book, whereas Percy already had two. I think it'd be a great choice. What do you think about that one? Did you read Killmonger, Lance? You probably didn't, did you?
No, I haven't been. I've been slowly coming back into Marvel, but I've been very tepid about trying some of those series. Still waiting for my mainstays, Wolverine, and things like that to get back on track.
Well, yeah, Wolverine will be back in February. Someone's saying Charles Soule for Black Panther. What do you think about that one, Pele?
I'm not really thrilled. Not really thrilled.
But I guess
odd.
If he's in space, it makes sense. His Star Wars stuff is great.
If they're going to have Black Panther in space, and he's going to have a lightsaber, maybe. Is that what?
Wow. We're getting some positive feedback on Charles Soule for Black Panther. It's an outside of the box choice. I wouldn't have thought about that one, but he is a good writer. I think he, he's only had a couple duds. Return of Wolverine. I think, did he have like an uncanny or no something X-Men that was bad? Otherwise, he's pretty good.
Yeah, his Swamp Thing was pretty bad. I remember reading that.
There's a Charles Soule Swamp Thing? I didn't even know that.
He followed Scott Snyder and did about 20 issues that were pretty much treading water.
Mm-hmm.
Then it was canceled, and that's... I mean, I guess he did okay, but I found it pretty boring.
Well, so I've been, powdering here, hoping that Doc was going to come back. I don't see him coming back. He might not come back. So I guess it's time to call it a show. Let's start out with... Let's talk about some comic book recommendations. Lance, what are you recommending for our viewers this week?
I don't really have anything that much for new comics, but I've been digging into the old war comics, and I picked this one up from 2000 AD, Darky's Mob. They have Garth Ennis has kind of presented a lot of these old war comics by John Wagner and Gary Finley Day with great art, all who ended up on Judge Dredd at some point. And I mean, just look at the back cover. That's pretty hardcore. I've always been fascinated with war comics. The British did them the best, in my opinion. So these collections are great. And it's kind of interesting, like the history of why they were so big after World War II, because the kids wanted to read about their fathers and things that they had done. And the art's always spectacular. There's a lot of respect. The knowledge of military aircraft and weaponry and strategy is so much more beyond what you would get nowadays in a war comic. If they brought back Enemy Ace or something, that they would just kind of... I think Mark Millar tried to write something like that once, and it was just like, you don't understand anything about history, do you? So it's kind of like a lost art for me. So it's nice to dig back into that. So I've enjoyed these collections. There's probably about 5 of them out there. So that's my recommendation.
Awesome. Pele, what are you recommending at the shop this week?
Spawn 301. Picking up. It's continuing on with the stories that kind of dropped down into 300. It's still going strong. It's now it's an ask now. The cover price $4.99, but it's a bigger, heavier book. So I'm hoping this isn't going to be the sign of things to come, because it was always the $3 hero. So I hope.
It's going back to $3 next issue.
Yeah. I'm just saying that two over $4 books in a row, is kind of like, it's getting people a little bit antsy there, because they like their $3 Spawn. But I think people have been getting their money's worth out of it. It's been very, very good, and I like the direction that it's going right now. Of course, Powers of X #6. If you can get the whole series, the A covers, or the connecting covers, wouldn't worry about any of the other ones, unless you just really like them and you think that they're pretty. But Powers of X, House of X, go back and see if you can get 1 through 6 each one of them. They're going to be important for many, many years to come. And I think that, the potential for those to be really hot collector's items for a long time I think it's a no-brainer practically. The True Believers, there's some, this couple of X-Men True Believers came out. I think it was a Pyro. Yeah, there was the Pyro True Believers. Of course, you got X-Men rolling out. And you've got the new titles that are coming out right on the heels of it. So definitely recommending those. Just kind of pick the characters that you like, and follow those stories. I think that all of it from the beginning is going to be really solid, because you're going to have a very watchful Hickman, standing, looking over their shoulders, I think, virtually speaking. We're going to see some really, really... What happens after that, I don't know. But I think that he's going to be handling Editorial on X-Men going forward, at least for the foreseeable future. So just find the characters that you like that are, find what mutants you like, buy those books, and I think you're going to have a really good time reading them.
Yep. All right. So Mango Bed is suggesting these Savage Shores, Ice Cream Man, and Blade Runner 2019. I agree. I haven't read Ice Cream Man, but these Savage Shores is amazing. Blade Runner 2019 is awesome, and you should definitely be reading both of those. Lance, have you gotten these Savage Shores yet?
I'm still waiting on 3 of the issues, but I read 2 of the middle ones, and they're fantastic.
Oh, it's so good. That is a great
really
series.
good horror.
It's about as I can't get into details now, but I'm recommending this week Spawn 301, of course, Doctor Doom #1, and then Amazing Spider-Man, which I've kind of fallen off, but these last 2 tie-ins to Absolute Carnage are really, really, really good. I think it's Amazing Spider-Man 30 and 31. It's all about Norman Osborn and his relationship with Peter Parker, and if you like those kind of comic books, if you like Norman Osborn, you like Peter Parker and the dynamics, you should go read those. Even if you don't read Amazing Spider-Man, you can read those 2 comics and you will like them very much, in my opinion. All right. Now let's wrap it up. Unfortunately, Doc had to leave, but if you want to follow him on Twitter and talk about X-Men, @ScienceJesus on Twitter. Lance, where can people find you on social media?
I'm on Twitter as well. Lance @RealLanceMan. Send me a follow. I'll follow you back.
Awesome. Pele, where can people find you?
You can find me at @just_Pele on Twitter and Instagram. Twitter tends to be more political, though I do talk comics. Also, usually just following whatever comic discussions are going on with Wes and them, and trying to interject, here and there. Right now, I just want to make a point of reference right now that let your voices be heard regarding what you're seeing right now with a lot of shifts in the tech companies, because a lot of decisions are being made right now are going to impact you directly within the next several years. So pay attention. It's important. And Instagram is just basically all comics. I talk about new acquisitions. I show comic covers that I really like, and that's it. Okay.
Awesome. So, last but not least, FF2 is recommending Spawn 301, Powers of X #6, Batman and the Outsiders, Detective Comics, Spawn Volume 1. He's saying keep away from Batman by King and everything business. I can't echo that enough. I read this week's Event Leviathan, and it was a turd sandwich.
It's unintelligible.
It's one of the worst comic books I've ever read. It would be the worst comic book of the year if I hadn't read Bendis's Legion of Superheroes Millennium #1. I don't know what happened. Well, I know what happened to the guy, but he is descended so badly, like probably the last 4 months. His books are almost all unreadable.
They are.
It's sad, I think Bendis is actually, in his heart, he's a nice guy. He wants things to be good for the comic industry, but his writing is terrible for it.
He just posted that he's got a new, for all you Bendis fans out there, a new Jinx World creator-owned title coming out. So look forward to that.
Focuses his energy on Jinx World.
I actually wonder if he's had some type of stroke. I'm not being sarcastic. I'm wondering if he actually has, because of how bad this has been lately.
Yeah, no, I noticeably changed about 4 or 5 months ago. All of a sudden, Action Comics, which was it was bad, but it wasn't terrible, is now unreadable. Superman's even worse. Legion of Superheroes is terrible. Event Leviathan is it's all over the place.
There are rumors swirling that in the Legion comic, he is going to age Jonathan Kent once again, and by the time that wraps up, send him back to Earth and replace Superman with Jonathan Kent.
Yes, I've heard the
which why would you
the DC 5G rumor where the 5th generation is going to be all the classic characters being replaced by younger versions.
Why would you say that writing Superman's your dream and then replace the character you had dreamt to write? I don't understand.
Maybe his dream was to
this gives more credence to the stroke theory.
His dream was to destroy Superman.
Yeah. He's doing it. Superman's pretty much irrelevant. Nobody wants to read the character anymore. The only people buying the comic are ones that have complete collections and don't want him to end. But all right. If you want to follow me, I'm at Wes_from_TC. Thank you all so much for joining us. Sorry for that last little rant, but do not read a Bendis book right now. They are really, really bad. It's never been in a worse shape than it is right now.
Horrific.
Thank you all so much. Salamapo.